Quiet down, please. Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Children and Youth. At this time, we ask that you silence all electronic devices, and at no time are you to approach the dais. If you have any questions throughout the hearing or would like to sign up for public testimony, please see one of the Sergeant-at-Arms. Chair, we're ready to begin.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? It's a great day. It's very cold. But good morning and welcome to today's hearing on examination of ACS Preventative Services Programming. I'm Councilmember Althea Stevens, Chair of Children and Youth Services. In addition to today's oversight topic, we will be hearing the following legislation. An Intro 652 sponsored by Councilmember Sanchez in relation to establishing a pilot program providing free mental health services to children who have been returned to their homes following a removal. Intro 9A, sponsored by Councilman Ayala in relation to providing information about obtaining counsel at the first point of contact during an ACS investigation. Preventative services play a critical role in keeping families' interactions and reducing foster care placements. Those services are often a lifeline for families facing challenges. Providing support to prevent children from being unnecessarily moved from their homes. By addressing underlying issues early, preventative services can help strengthen family dynamics. Ultimately, those services aim to reduce the racial inequities that have been present for far too long within the child welfare system. However, major concern I have is can family actually get those services that they need without having intense surveillance from ACS? Another important strategy used by ACS is to decrease the amount of children entering foster care. In foster care is the CARES model. In 2013, ACS introduced the CARES model as an alternative to traditional child abuse and neglect investigation. The CARES model aims to provide a collaborative and less intensive response to families by focusing on stabilizing households. It is important that we use CARES to its full potential to help families where a negative impact is preventable. However, advocates say CARES sometimes can be more intensive than the actual regular traditional investigation. However, our work is to be a delicate balance. We must ensure that families have access to support they need. Our primary responsibility is to protect children who may be in imminent danger. This balance demands a thoughtful and measurable approach to every child welfare investigation. Both preventative services and the CARES model hold significant promises in helping families succeed, but recent tragedies involving children under ACS supervision reminded us that we must stay vigilant. We must ensure that the incentives that are applied are effective and in the appropriate circumstances. The stakes are too high to allow any gaps in oversight or execution. Today, we must focus on ensuring that ACS is doing everything possible to reduce the number of children entering foster care while maintaining the safety and well-being of all those at risk. I look forward to hearing from ACS and other stakeholders on how we can strengthen preventative services, improve the outcomes for families, and continue working towards equity and safety for all children. I would like to thank my committee staff, Christina and Elizabeth, for their hard work preparing for this hearing, and obviously the team back in District 16. And with that, I would like to turn it over to committee staff so they can swear in the administration.
Hi, good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Jess Danhauser, Luisa Linares, Elizabeth Wolkemmer, Raymond Toomer. Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Stevens and members of the Children and Youth Committee. I'm Jess Danhauser, Commissioner of the New York City Administration for Children's Services. I'm joined today by Luisa Linares, the Deputy Commissioner for Preventive Services, Elizabeth Wolkamir, the Deputy Commissioner for Child and Family Wellbeing, and Raymond Toomer, the Associate Commissioner for Community-Based Alternatives in our Division of Youth and Family Justice. Together, their teams and our nonprofit partners deliver a continuum of services and supports for children, youth, and families. We appreciate the City Council holding today's oversight hearing, examining our prevention services program. Providing families and youth with support as upstream as possible is the best way to keep children safe and thriving. Because families across the city have unique and individualized needs, we provide a continuum of services of varying types and intensities, which I'll talk more about today. All of these services are free and available regardless of immigration status, and voluntary except when participation is court-ordered. Families seeking help do not have to have any involvement with child protection or an investigation. Given the wide range of services we offer, family services providers and community members can contact our support line at 212-676-7667 or connect at acs.nyc.gov to learn more about the options and what services would be most appropriate for families' needs, whether that's within our continuum or with our city partners. We would love to continue to partner with the Council to help spread the word about our support line so that all families know how to access help when they need it. Through our Division of Child and Family Wellbeing, we work to ensure families and children have the critical supports they need to thrive and exercise self-determination. The division focuses on leveraging concrete supports, stakeholder relationships, and community and family strengths to drive towards greater equity and social justice, reduce disparities, and create conditions that foster well-being. Since 2007, we have supported 11 community partnerships throughout the city. The community partnerships serve as coalitions of multi-sector stakeholders, including service providers, public agencies, community organizations, community leaders, and residents. Partnership efforts are shaped by community members and local community-based organization representatives in each neighborhood. Recent efforts have included Know Your Rights seminars, collaboration with New York City Public Schools to host education forums on relevant topics for parents, classes to support parent-child bonding, summer engagement of youth in entrepreneurship classes, application support for child care assistance, and referrals to services and concrete supports. As you know, ACS also supports family enrichment centers, which are warm, inviting walk-in spaces for families. In 2021, ACS announced a plan to expand from 3 to 30 FECs. There are currently contracts for 29, which are in various stages of implementation. Some have been open and operating for several years. Others are in the startup phase, working to hire and train staff, engage community members to design and renovate their sites, conduct outreach, and provide in-person and virtual offerings through partnerships with community organizations and leaders. We expect to announce the award for the 30th and final site in the next few months. The FECs promote family strengthening protective factors like social connections, parental resilience, and access to concrete supports that help families pursue their dreams and weather hard times. Everything about each FEC, including the name, physical layout, and offerings provided, are co-designed with families and community members. Providers with deep ties to their communities were selected to operate the FECs. Notably, FECs do not require families to disclose any identifying information, including any information about child welfare involvement. We also want to make sure that families and child-serving professionals know how to keep children safe by preventing unintentional injuries. Our Office of Child Safety and Injury Prevention connects with families, communities, and professionals to make them aware of the leading causes of preventable childhood injuries and the best way to keep children safe. We provide education, training, and supplies, including through participation in community-based events and public awareness campaigns to promote safe sleep practices, as well as safe storage of cannabis-infused edibles, medication, and other household items to mitigate unintentional poisoning of children. ACS oversees a nationally recognized continuum of child well prevention services aimed at keeping children safe, supporting parents with the resources they need, and preventing, where possible, involvement with child protection. ACS contracts with 43 providers for 124 programs, reaching over 15,000 families and 32,000 children each year. I want to take a moment to thank our prevention service providers, all of the nonprofits, community-based organizations, for all they do each day supporting families and children. Referrals to these services are increasingly coming from schools, communities, and families themselves. Just 2 years ago, 93% of referrals to prevention came directly from ACS and our providers. After more than 250 trainings over the last 18 months with staff from schools, medical providers, hospitals, and shelters, nearly 1/4 of referrals are now coming from the community, not from ACS. ACS-funded prevention providers support and stabilize families by addressing common family challenges, including family communication, homemaking, health and mental health, substance misuse, intimate partner violence, housing instability, and more. Our continuum ensures that every model is available to families regardless of where they live. The full continuum is available for free, regardless of immigration status. Our continuum includes clinically delivered evidence-based intensive models such as MST, multisystemic therapy, functional family therapy, and brief strategic family therapy, which typically works with families with teens. We also have child-parent psychotherapy, which is an intervention model for families with young children who've experienced trauma. We offer family treatment rehabilitation for families where the primary issue is substance misuse or a mental health challenge. A safe way forward for families impacted by intimate partner violence, and special medical services where a parent or child needs additional support because of a significant health or developmental condition. Group attachment-based intervention, GABI, is available in 6 sites in all 5 boroughs and helps caregivers of children under 4 build strong bonds with their young children. We contract with 5 agencies to provide homemaking services, which is a support in-home services to help parents and caretakers develop skills to support child and family well-being and to successfully manage daily household tasks. These services can be available up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we provide over 1 million service hours annually. We also offer family support programs which provide case management and in-home tailored services to address needs such as service referrals, support with concrete goods, and regular assessments of child safety and well-being. Our newest model is school-based early support, which launched in July 2024, and builds on the legacy of the ACS Beacon prevention model and support our efforts to link families to support and resources without the need for a child welfare investigation. As part of our contracts with 16 programs, each has identified at least 3 partner elementary and/or middle schools in their district where they will maintain a presence to serve families. Providers are required to collaboratively co-design at least 4 school-based offerings per year based on the needs of the school community, all with the goal of being an easily accessible support for families. As required by Local Law 17 of 2018, ACS conducts an annual family experience survey to gather feedback from families who've participated in prevention programs. The 2023 Family Experience Survey found that approximately 94% of survey participants said they were happy with the prevention services they received. 90% said they would recommend the service to a family friend, and 93% said the services are helping them achieve their goals. ACS has used family feedback to inform our work with city agency partners and the public about what ACS provides without a child welfare investigation, as well as to enhance our internal capacity to help families connect to community-based resources and supports outside the child welfare system. The results of the 2024 survey, which we anticipate based on our prior feedback will have similar findings, will be released in the coming weeks, and we look forward to sharing those results with the chair and the council. ACS also oversees a continuum of community-based alternatives that help prevent at-risk youth from getting involved with the justice system or entering foster care. Our Family Assessment Program, FAP, was originally designed to help prevent youth from coming into foster care as person in need of supervision. When FAP began in 2022, there were 822 youth who came into foster care under PINS. In 2023, there were 9. Today, FAP is free, voluntary, and available to any family struggling with difficult teenage behaviors. FAP bridges the gap between teenagers and families in crisis by helping them resolve and manage conflict through assessments, individualized interventions, and referrals to a range of community-based support programs, including our own continuum of services. FAP serves approximately 3,000 youth each year. The FAP continuum includes family stabilization, intensive 3-month crisis intervention to de-escalate conflict, functional family therapy, brief strategic family therapy, multisystemic therapy, substance abuse, respite, and mentoring and advocacy, where youth are connected to Fair Futures coaches for the first time. Intro 652 would require the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to establish and operate a pilot program to provide free mental health services for up to 1 year for children who have been returned home from foster care. ACS strongly agrees that children and youth who are reunified from foster care and who are in need of mental health services should have immediate access to these services without charge. Currently, when a youth is discharged from foster care, there are provisions to ensure continuity of care for services initiated while the child was in care. Specifically, they would be able to access all Medicaid services they were receiving while in care for up to a year, so long as the foster care agency notifies the managed care plan of the discharge. Young adults age 18 and older at discharge are eligible for Medicaid up to age 26. And also, older youth exiting foster care have Fair Futures coaches who can connect them to support services up to the age of 26 as well. Of course, families in need can access ACS-funded prevention services as well. ACS looks forward to discussing this bill with the council. ACS also appreciates the council's interest in making sure that parents and caretakers know how to find an attorney when ACS is conducting a child protective investigation. Since 2020, ACS has been providing families with the contact information for the legal services organization in their borough at the start of an investigation. Information is included with an informational package about how to access resources in their community, such as food banks and family enrichment centers. We look forward to discussing this legislation with the council as well. As a father, I know that parenting can be extremely rewarding and challenging, and that many of us have times when we need a helping hand. This is why I want to be sure that any New Yorker in need of support knows how to find it. Our support line, which again can be reached at 212-676-7667, is available to help connect families to free services in their community, regardless of immigration status. We look forward to discussing with the council. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to read a statement from Councilmember Sanchez regarding her bill. In a recent report from ACLU shows that across New York City, Black children account for 54% and Latino children 36% of emergency removals, while a 2019 analyst found that Black and Latino parents are more likely to be subject to a child welfare investigation without being more likely to be found guilty of abuse or neglect. What is the city doing to stem those alarming racial inequities, and how are we supporting children and families who experience this trauma? While emergency removals can be necessary in some cases, they have a profound and long-lasting impact on children and mental health and causes immeasurable stress to their families. Intro 652 would require DOHMH to establish a pilot program for no-cost mental health services for affected families and require outreach to ensure the program reaches those who need it most. Thank you, Chair Stevens, that's me, for hearing this important legislation. I look forward to today's feedback and tailoring my bill to meet the needs of families that experience this trauma in child welfare system. And that is from Councilmember Sanchez, and I hope she is resting with her feet up while she is preparing to bring the new chicken nugget into the world. So at this time, I'm going to start questions. I'm going to start with some questions that I have from the testimony that Commissioner, you just read. One of the first things that I see here, this is echoing in my ear. One of the first things that I see here that was interesting to me was the hotline and support number that you talked about. How are you doing advertisement for this hotline, and how do families find out about this?
Thank you, Chair Stevens. This is really important. We've done hundreds of trainings for mandated reporters in schools, in shelters, and hospitals. We are also doing social media around this. I've been on some news to talk about this. It's really key that families know either the Connect mailbox or the number. They can outreach. They're connected to Deputy Commissioner Linares' staff, who will walk them through everything we have in our continuum, supports that might be outside of our continuum. We're seeing some progress. So in 2023, we had 500 calls to that hotline. Already in 2024, we've had 2,700 calls to that hotline, and we're connecting families to supports. It's one of the reasons we're seeing fewer families connected to ACS, to preventive through ACS, and more families connected on their own. So there's a long way to go. We'd love to partner with you to continue to get information out about that. But we are making sure we're using the state's new mandated reporter training and saying, in instances where you feel like families just need a little bit of support, this is the hotline that you can call, where doesn't rise to the level of a call. And that's it's the most inequitable part of our child welfare system is that initial call. 7 times more likely that a Black child's family is called in to the SCR than a white child's family. And so we are out there doing lots of training, and any partnership we can do to get that out even further would be great.
Because it's interesting. So just even in my office specifically, and I always say that if I feel like if it's happening with me, it must be happening in other places. I've gotten a number of calls since I've taken over oversight from parents who have ACS cases who are saying they don't know where they're supposed to get support or how to get support, and they already have cases. So I'm even confused that there's a line, and I've seen it has doubled in my office. So I hear you saying you're doing trainings for mandated reporters and those things. So how do we get it to the parents who have ACS cases? Is this information given to them at the first point of contact? What does that look like? Because I'm confused on why parents who have cases, and I'm not even talking about parents who don't have cases, right? I'm talking about parents who have cases are not getting the support or saying that their worker isn't helping them, they don't understand. So
Yeah, I'd love to dig deep into that. We do provide an information packet of services to parents at that very first contact.
Is it in multiple
consistent with-
languages?
It is in multiple languages, and it's specific to the community. We also know that there is a set of youth services that we want families to know about. We table in a lot of different places for our FAP program, because I would imagine some of the families, at least, that are reaching out might be struggling with a teen has behavior challenges.
Yeah, I mean, that's been some of the number one calls that I have, that they don't know what to do, they need support, and literally I'm like, well, have you spoken to your worker? Like, it's gotten to the point where I'm like, well, tell your worker to call my office because this is unacceptable. So what is the disconnect there?
Yeah, well, we're bringing together, and sometimes it's because they're in the wrong, we have not sort of sufficiently connected all of the dots, and so we're doing a lot of work to make sure that our child protective teams are educated about what's available through FAP, that our referral management teams that are in our borough offices that are prevention are educating all of the staff as we roll out, as we do.
And just even to think about that as you're working with them, how are you working with the local council members? Because if if I'm getting calls, I'm sure other people are getting calls. I probably get additional calls because I'm the chair, but I'm sure other people are getting calls saying, like, how do I help? So how are you even getting that information? Because I think that, how I always feel, I don't know why city agencies aren't working together. And so how are you also working with ZYCD to have this in all their community centers, their after-school programs, doing the outreach there? Because we keep saying in schools, great, but we know sometimes that that's not the right point of contact because the parents don't feel comfortable there. So what does this look like? How are we training ZYCD staff as they're working with kids on a regular basis to get this stuff? So what does that look like?
We're accelerating all of it. I would love to be able to sit down with you and go through ways in which we can work with the entire council to get, it's a great idea, to see if we can make sure everyone has that information. We prioritize schools.
And do you have printable stuff? Because we could also just email it to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that'll be great.
The reason we started with schools is because they are one of the largest reporters. We started there, we started with hospitals, with shelters, and so we wanted them to know right away. Your ideas about where to go next I think are spot on, and
I think sometimes we forget that the after-school programs are probably the better place to start because they have different relationships, and we forget that, right? Because when I was a director, do you know how many times schools would send kids to me and say, you need to call ACS because they didn't want to do it? And so we are forgetting that there's a whole other group of people that work with kids on a regular basis that sometimes have better relationships than the schools that we are just kind of leaving out the conversation. So like when you're thinking about cornerstones, beacons, those people are actually the ones doing the support, and usually the people that you contract to do the wraparound services anyway. So why would we not also just work there when you're already contracting them to do the work? Because a lot of these are multiple, like they do multiple things.
As someone who's run Cornerstone and Beacons as well, I totally respect them. We got it.
Yeah,
100%.
so that's just my feedback around that.
Thank you.
What's the average attendance for the FECs?
A little over 200. I'll let Liz Wolkamere, who oversees our division in child and family wellbeing, speak a little bit about where we are in that process.
Sure. So each month, the average per FEC is about 390 individuals that attend offerings, and the offerings are discrete programming, so activities, planned events, gatherings, cafes, workshops, peer support groups. There are also walk-ins that...
So that's average per site, or that's the total average altogether?
That's the average per site. Okay. But there are also families that are walking in informally to have a cup of coffee, to have a conversation, to get support. But on average, it's 390 individuals per site per month.
How are you evaluating the success of these programs?
So we are, one, that there was evaluation done after the pilot years when the first 3 sites were open that looked at whether or not they successfully met their intended goal, which was to amplify the protective factors of families, meaning social connection, parental resilience, access to concrete supports, knowledge of parenting and child development skills, and that was based on participant perception in the growth of those factors based on their continued engagement with FECs, and we saw a lot of strengths around that, which was the basis for expanding this work. Now that we have a larger continuum, we are building an infrastructure to continue to look at that and see if we are meeting those benchmarks around that goal of amplifying protective factors.
What does outreach look like for the FECs?
So each FEC, so we have on our own website access to information around the family enrichment centers, and as the commissioner mentioned, we do a lot of work with partners in the city to make sure that they're aware that there are family enrichment centers in their respective neighborhoods. The most powerful outreach that happens through the community-based organizations, because part of the reason that they were selected through the competitive procurement process is that they've got deep roots in the community already. So a lot of work that looks like programming or offerings is also intended to bring new families in the door, and each family enrichment center builds a parent advisory council of local community members that are also responsible for galvanizing outreach and bringing families, especially those that might be more isolated in community, into the center.
Do you guys go out and do observations of the FECs and get feedback? And like, do you guys, because I know like sometimes people go out and look at them, do you guys do that as well?
We do. Our program management staff is on site very regularly at each of the family enrichment centers.
So how regularly, what does that look like? Is there an evaluation? Are they doing an evaluation? Do they do a write-up? What does that look like?
We get regular reporting. We're in the process of really like reforming and amplifying that as our continuum has grown. I can't say with confidence the exact amount of times that program staff are out, but they are probably at each family enrichment center 1 to 3 times a month, I would say.
I mean, I recently went to my family enrichment center in my district, which I thought was really nice, but it didn't have, it was hard to identify. Like I walked past like 3 times because it's in the Bronx, and it's nice once you go inside, but I think even that, like, and that was one of my feedback when I went there, was saying like, how would anyone know it was here? I didn't know it was there. I'm a whole council member. They had never reached out to me. I never knew that they were there. And so how does families know that? And I know they said they work really closely with some schools, but again, we're still missing families if we're only focusing on doing outreach in schools, because that's what they said their primary outreach was in schools. And so there's a lot of families, and even in that area, there isn't a lot of providers in that area, which I thought it was a good place. But if you're only going to the schools, what happens if your kid isn't in school? What happens if this is a person who just moved to the neighborhood? Like, it's so many other factors. What if they don't go to school in the neighborhood? I think that for me, it's like, why aren't we looking to do more partnerships or things like that? So that's why I'm asking about what the evaluation process looks like for the FECs. And then, I just had another question from your testimony. Oh, and you said that the referral services that you were getting before, and that you believe that the hotline, because it was at 93% referrals for preventative services were coming from ACS, and now more referrals are coming from the community. What's the percentage now from the community, and what's the number of disparities between those two?
It's 25% now.
It's 25% from
From
ACS?
the community. Yeah, 75% from ACS, 25% from the community.
Oh, so it's 75%.
Yeah,
So there was.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, I was trying to hear.
Yeah, so it's 75% from
I'm sorry, let me put
ACS,
this back on, 'cause I can't hear
25% from
again.
the community. We think we're going to see a very significant jump in the community referrals, not only from the work that we were talking about and some of what we'll do following this conversation, but we're also seeing, we're launching the school-based early support programs, which are primarily for families who have not had ACS contact or have not had that sort of recently. And so they're again, connected in ways that we're seeing families that are allowed to not open a case. So where there's a portion of the school-based early support that is just dedicated to getting concrete help to families meeting their specific need. And so we're trying to make it more and more attractive to families to engage with those services. That was launched July 1st. There's 1,280 slots there. We're already seeing hundreds of families engage, and we're talking to all of the providers. I know you might have seen the SCAN program, and so they are all engaging right now. So I think we're going to be at a third and more in the near future.
And so, and just, I guess, could you talk to me a little bit more about the school-based program too? Just because I would love to think like, okay, how do they connect? Like, how does a parent connect, right? Like, 'cause sometimes it's hard. So are they doing outreach? Is this something that like someone sees and they're like, oh, you should go talk to them? Or like, what does this look like?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Deputy Commissioner Linares to speak to that a little bit.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. So the school-based programs are The providers are actually in the schools, which allows for the staff at the schools to have constant interaction with the providers and be able to connect the families directly to the program. We have each of the 16 programs is connected to at least 3 schools. And some of the, I think, brilliant
So how
things-
many staff, they're connected to 3 schools, so with these contracts, how many staffers are on there? So is it 1 person per school? Are they're at the school 2-3 days a week? Are you guys not mandating that? So what does that look like?
So we are in the process of program development because the program just started in July. So we are working out with the providers some of the details as to how do we best service all of the families across these 3 schools. There are some flexibility in terms of having the providers be sitting at different locations. They obviously have a main location for administrative reasons, but the expectation is that they are sitting in the different schools.
So do they have like a caseload? Are they working with these families intensively? Do they come in to the principals like, hey, I have these like what does this look like? Because I still am not able to picture it.
Okay, so this is a very unique program, and we're super excited about it. It's unique in many ways. Part of it is that it's an 80-slot program. Of those 80 slots, there are 8 slots that have tons of flexibility. They are funded by city.
That 8?
8. They are funded by city tax levy, which means that we are not binded, if you will, by OCFS regulations. So with those 8, families can come in, and if there's a need for 1 or 2 issues, for instance, the family may have a need to be in a supportive program, a parenting program, and so on, the providers can provide that service on a continual basis. So we have 8 slots, but really we can serve a large number of families as they come in and out. The other 17 are more of the traditional child welfare prevention program. Some of the differences between school-based and other programs is that the school-based is not only in the school, but is also trying to get to the family before there's any involvement with ACS. So these are what we call advocate cases that assist only on site, and so we don't have the record in the system and so on, and the family can connect directly to the provider, and there's an expectation, there's ongoing communication between the school staff and the prevention staff. We also ask them that they do different activities together. We just had a launch event this past month where we brought the school principals and superintendents together with our prevention staff. So the idea is that we are constantly evolving in terms of how we're serving those families, and that we are engaging the families also in thinking about the service itself. I think best said by our commissioner recently is that if we look the same in 3 years, then we haven't been asking families how the program should look. So I think we have lots of flexibility. It's an opportunity for innovation, and we're very excited to be able to have this program with us.
And I'll just add that one of the other key differences is that there's actually an embedded benefits worker in each program. And so the focus on concrete needs, make sure we're addressing issues of income security. We're looking at trying to learn from that more broadly on our preventive services system. Case planners do help with benefit access across the system, but this has somebody who is dedicated to that specifically. And that was based on feedback after our concept paper from providers and advocates.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm excited to hear about the program, but I still I'm struggling on thinking about, like, how does this fit into the bigger picture around a lot of the things, because it all, like, so it's like, I want to come out to see the program, because I'm just struggling with, like, kind of, like, understanding how, like, all of this plays into, like, why isn't this just not a part of a community school? Why are we not just partnering with community-based organizations to have them in there? Like, it seems duplicate again, where it's like, this is something that already is kind of happening in a lot of schools. And so then why can't from some, again, it seems very duplicative in some ways.
Yeah, we'd love to have you out, of course. In addition, I just want to say that each superintendent and principal had to determine that this is something they wanted in their school, so that they didn't, if it was duplicative, they weren't going to do it. And so,
But a lot of times, especially principals and superintendent just want more services because they want to be able to give people access. And so does that mean we didn't look at the data to see where there's not as much services to say like this actually makes more sense? Because I have schools in my district where they're a community school, they have a beacon, they have a 21st century contract, and then I have schools that have nothing. And so it's, how are we making sure that this is going where it needs to be? And like, again, when you think about the community school model, like a lot of that stuff that you're saying should be being done there. And so that's what I mean.
yeah, I agree with you, but I just want to add that the community school model doesn't include some of the sort of case management
Yeah,
navigation.
then we should
of
just
that.
add it instead of like adding more agencies into more things, especially when it seems like a lot of times, well, not seems like, we know that a lot of the cross collaboration isn't happening in the way that it should be. So, I mean, I see the chair of education is here, so I'm sure she's gonna ask questions, so I'm gonna leave that there and let her get to that. But I mean, I think I'm excited about it because in the sense of like, I know that ACS often has a lot of programs that parents should be able to access without having to get a case. And so this is a way for them to get in. But again, if I have some concerns, but we'll talk. And like I said, Rita, I'm sure she'll have a bunch of questions. You talked a little bit about the survey that you guys do for participants. And I know you said like 94% of the folks who have taken the survey, it's usually positive feedback. Is this survey anonymous? How is it distributed? How do you administer that?
It's administered through the agencies, and it's confidential. We don't see, it's not anonymous, but we don't get the information on sort of who filled out what in particular. We get the sort of macro data. It's about 2,000 participants who filled it out last year. Anything you want to add?
About 2,000, and we had about 31% respond rate from families across the city.
Is there a reason why you haven't opted to do more of an anonymous? Because we know you probably get different results.
No reason. A lot of providers use a variety of ways of parent roundtables. Some of them have at Grand Wyndham, we used to have a kiosk where people could say happy or not, and lots of different, a lot of different ways where they're trying to get feedback, and we are encouraging providers to have access to have some parents to have access to them so that they can give their feedback about what's working and what's not. Obviously, it's also if we make our services accessible to families and what families believe is helpful, we'll see more families come to us voluntarily. And that to me is ultimately what is really, really key. We know also that preventive services is effective in reducing the likelihood of repeat maltreatment and entry into foster care. So less than about 5% of families who completed preventive services have a re-indication in the next 6 months, and less than 2% have an entry into foster care. It's closer to 1% than 2%.
Well, listen, I know that a big push you've been really hyper-focused on has been around like trying to get the numbers down for folks going into foster care, and preventative services has been something that you've been hyper-focused on, which I really appreciate because I honestly don't feel like that's been a priority for any commissioner. But it's really good to see a lot of these programs, but I just want to make sure we continue to like push on it. I want to change gears a little bit to talk about the CARES model a little bit. Can you outline the process for ACS following after receiving a report from SCR? Specifically, how does a respond differ between a traditional investigations case assigned and a CARES track?
Okay. I'm gonna take a couple minutes here because it's sort of to set some context.
Yeah.
So
Explain this to us like we're 5-year-olds, because I'm slow sometimes.
I doubt that. The CARES model is what the state calls family assessment response or differential response. It's a state state statute that allows for responses to calls to the SCR to be responded to differentially. CARES is what ACS calls it. Actually, a parent named it that several years ago. The state sets the initial criteria. So the state criteria, sexual abuse, abandonment, assault against a child, those types of things cannot go down the CARES track. The state also has, so that about half of cases would be eligible to go down the CARES track. No jurisdiction in the state is using CARES at a 50% rate. These are dedicated CPS who then get retrained, keep their CPS skills, and are retrained as a CARES child protective specialist. ACS has additional exclusionary criteria. A serious injury that fits the criteria for our incident response team, and a newborn positive toxicology for any drug other than marijuana, we do not send down the CARES track. And so we're actually a little bit tighter than the state, although we use it more than any other place in the state. When the call comes, it will say from the state, FAR eligible, Family Assessment Response eligible. So the state makes the first screen. We have dedicated staff that are there to screen cases and send them down the investigation track or the CARES track, or the incident response team track, or to the hospital sex abuse track. So they are looking at what are the allegations, what's the history been here, and they're trying to make an assessment of what would be the most effective approach. CARES is a safety response, investigation is a safety response. They are done differently. Once they make that determination, if it is going down the CARES track, it goes to a unit that is dedicated to CARES, and the CARES worker makes a phone call, talks to the parent about CARES, explains to them that it's optional. We used to say voluntary, but that's not quite fair, because the option is either CARES or an investigation. So we work with the family. If they accept the CARES, we do a home visit and we begin the process. During that first 7 days, our staff are doing a safety assessment. They're using lots of other social work tools that we don't use typically in investigation. We're working on trying to infuse some of that into every instance. So the 3 houses, they're using motivational interviewing, and they are sort of bringing real social work skill to that conversation. If at any time in that first 7 days, the CARES CPS determines that there is something unsafe here, they can retrack it to an investigation. It can go back to an investigation. If they determine anything after that 7 days, because it's voluntary after those 7 days, and so after that 7 days, if a family there's a different concern, our staff can call in an additional case, and then it'll go down an investigative track. This happens, those two retracking all combined happens in about 10% of cases. So they're seeing something that they're concerning, and then they retrack it to an investigation. But 90% go forward and are completed as CARES. In CARES, families set with us a plan. They will often, let's say they're struggling with getting the child to school, we'll bring the school in, we'll do a family team meeting, and we'll work on sort of ways in which we're going to work together to get the child into school. They might need a child care voucher. They might need other services through preventive services. And you can get to preventive services either through an investigation or through CARES. If it's CARES, it's more on the advocates track that Louisa was describing earlier. So, I think it's really important that we say the CARES approach is a safety response. If someone needs just a little bit of help, we don't need to be calling the SCR to get CARES. CARES is in response to a report of child maltreatment, and it does a thorough assessment of the child's safety. And so again, sort of the state sets the initial criteria, we have additional criteria, our teams do an assessment, and then there's an ongoing assessment during that first 7 days when the staff have seen the children and been able to engage with the parents.
That was a lot.
I know.
But it's helpful. I would like to acknowledge we have the public advocate who have joined us, Jamani Williams, Councilmember Rita Joseph, Councilmember Linda Lee, and Councilmember Williams. What steps are taken if families decline to participate in CARES? Will ACS still provide them with information about community-based organizations unaffiliated with ACS that can offer assistance? Additionally, is ACS providing material support such as direct cash assistance, furniture, food, or clothing to families who opt out of CARES?
Absolutely. All services are available regardless of which track. ACS does not itself provide direct cash, but all of the other things we do. Furniture, cribs, we've opened pantries in our borough offices. We will work with our partners at HRA if cash assistance is needed. And we do often provide money for immediate needs. If there's groceries that's needed, we can purchase them. Staff have access to purchasing around concrete needs in the home.
Are you guys, is ACS helping them with HRA to get cash assistance? Because that was another thing. I've been getting a lot of calls in my office where they're saying that their worker isn't helping them connect those dots.
Yeah. One of the things that we've done, Chair, over the last few months that I think is really important here is revive our FPP program, a Family Preservation Program. All old ideas are good or something like that. So we had a Family Preservation Program. These are dedicated staff who come alongside the CPS to work on things like that, benefits access, concrete needs. CPS have, right now, the caseload's about 7.5. They're going out to do another assessment, and so we have now a dedicated unit in each office that can go out and support families, particularly where there's risk to children. They can continue to observe in that role, but they're really there, dedicated. Sometimes we encounter families where there are serious conditions in the home, and we're working with NYCHA or HPD. Sometimes there's a hoarding condition, and we need to do deep cleaning. We needed to have an additional resource to support CPS because of what you're identifying. And so this just came back online. This is something that we are really
When did it
passionate.
come back online again?
It's called the Family Preservation Program.
I said, when did it come back online?
We staffed up, it's December, sometime late summer.
Oh,
Yeah,
how many
early
people?
fall.
How many people?
I'll get you the exact numbers, but it's a dedicated unit in each office.
Okay. Families have reported that sometimes ACS resort to cooperative practices to gain cooperation from parents referred to CARES track, including threatening to removal of children. How do you ensure that the program remains voluntary or optional? I don't know which one we're using.
Yeah, we have, I think this is part of the reason it's so important that we're informing families about calling an attorney early on, that they have that right. As you know, we are now notifying families at the front door that we need their permission to come into their home and that they have the right to call an attorney, and we're providing legal defense. Our staff are not, it is not our practice to threaten families, to tell them that take CARES or remove the children. That is absolutely counter to our practice. But we always need reinforcements. We always need to make sure that families have access to someone who they can talk to about their rights.
I mean, the feedback from especially advocates, they are still saying that is not happening. So we definitely need to continue to have that conversation of what that truly looks like around letting families know their rights, because I'm hearing that is not happening on a regular basis. And so, sometimes I think it can be a disconnect, especially if we have staff who's been there for a long time and it hasn't been something that has been done before, and what does the training look like? But I'm gonna keep going with some of the other questions. Could any of the funding received by ACS for the CARES program be used for direct, well, you kind of already said no. According to ACS, cases are deferred to cases track if they are low risk. What criteria does ACS use to determine which cases are considered low risk? Are those specific safeguards to prevent cases from being miscategorized?
Yes, so the criteria that we described earlier from the state level, and then the additional criteria that ACS has, including our incident response team. And again, there's a retracking if there's something that's noted that's unsafe for a child. And so we have managers, supervisors, managers, deputy directors. They get involved in these conversations with teams to really do that assessment. There are times when we want to use CARES and a family doesn't wish to do it. We will immediately retract that and go down the investigative track.
So, I mean, I guess that's why you kind of changed it from voluntary to optional, because if they refuse, they are automatically going to get an investigation.
By state law, ACS is mandated to respond within 24 to 48 hours to every report that comes into the state central registry. We can do CARES if there's not an exclusionary criteria, or we can do an investigation, but we have to do one or the other.
So my question is, and just thinking about this, and if we are coming in and leading with, coming in saying we're trying to help the kids and we're only coming in for resources, then why do we have two different models, right? Because if I'm coming in to do an investigation, I believe you guys start with like a safety evaluation, and that's one of the first things. And so why is that not like the base, opposed to saying like we're going to go through a CARES tract or investigate? Like, I think that's a little bit confusing, because if we're coming in and saying like, hey, we're just coming in to do an assessment to make sure the kids are okay, why is that not the first step, and why are there two different tracks?
The first step is always a safety assessment and to make sure that the children are okay. The big difference, in addition to some of the practices that we've been able to build into CARES, is that the focus is not making a determination of indication or not. And so there's a lot that we have to do in an investigation to determine whether we have the preponderance of evidence that there's been maltreatment or not. So take a child who's chronically absent from school. A lot of the focus in the investigation has to be, did the parent meet the minimum degree of care? Do we indicate or do we not? And in CARES, we can get to much quicker, how do we help get the child to school? In investigations, we're doing that too, but there is a requirement to determine whether we have the preponderance of evidence or not in an investigation. And for CARES, even if, having an indication over something that you're struggling with that affects employment and other things, we think if we can solve the problem, keep children safe without saddling families with an indicated record, that's the right thing to do. But safety is always the first assessment. That's always what we're focused on.
Because listen, I just want to say I 100% understand that, we want to always focus on safety and making sure that kids are safe, but it's a delicate balance, and I understand that, especially with the disproportionate of Black children specifically having removals from homes. I think that, we also have to, it just seems strange that we would be like, okay, we have these two different tracks. And what I'm hearing from advocates, that they're feeling like CARES sometimes actually is more intrusive than the actual investigatory, because I think the cases open longer, when a lot of times if they go down the regular track, the cases actually close a lot quicker and have less involvement. And so that's why I'm also confused, where it's like, if I'm hearing from advocates that they only really like CARES, well, who is this benefiting if they're saying that cases are longer, parents don't really feel like it's voluntary, it kind of feels like they have the same type of scrutiny? What's really the difference? And so that's why I'm,
Yeah, we look at time to closure on both CARES and investigations. They're fairly equivalent. CARES, if we developed a plan with a family to make sure that whatever underlying issues are addressed, our team is going to stick around to make sure that we can support them in that. CARES is voluntary after the 7 days. And so if we have made an assessment that the child is safe, families do not have to continue with CARES. What we're hearing is they are continuing because we're advocating for services for them, or there's supports that they need that we're putting into place. But this is a conversation I've had directly with advocates and will continue to have to understand what they're seeing.
Yeah, because it just seems a little strange. I just have a couple more questions, and I'll turn it over to the public advocate, who I know has some remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions. Anonymous child protective specialists have raised concerns about the expansion of CARES criteria. Specifically, some claim that the criteria now allow parents with criminal or drug activity in the home to qualify for CARES tract. Can you confirm if this is accurate? If so, did ACS begin expanding the CARES criteria, and what are the primary concerns or objectives behind this expansion?
The change that is being referenced there was made in 2019. The program started back in 2013. The change that we have made is consistent with what I was describing earlier, which is that if there's been previous involvement around things like educational neglect, we allow that to go down CARES because we think it might solve the root cause more likely. But there has been no change around those things since 2019. And we think the safeguards that I described earlier around being able to retrack are the right way to go here.
In cases involving criminal activity in the home, how does ACS determine whether a family qualifies for CARES Track or formal investigation is required?
It's an assessment. If there's active criminal activity, if there's a criminal court case, it does not go down the CARES Track. It is one of the exclusionary criteria that ACS adds to the state list. And so if there has been previous criminal history, if there's been other history that we look at, it's really an assessment around what are the current allegations and how best can we address the underlying issues.
Are there cases where this is falling through the gaps? Because, we have anonymous child protective specialists saying that this is actually currently happening.
I talk to my staff all the time. Right now, if I wasn't here, I'd be in a CARES forum. There's a difference in perspective that I welcome at ACS, and we are always having conversations about, our job is to protect children from harm in their home, to protect children from being unnecessarily removed. And we need to continue to evolve our system to make sure that focus is done in ways that are most supportive to children and to their families, and that we're making the right decisions when children are in danger. We look very carefully whenever an incident happens about what changed. We do not see any evidence in the data that this is about CARES. And so every time I get feedback from my staff, we take it very seriously. We look at the data, we look at experience, we talk to many different stakeholders to try to set a direction for this agency that is both protective to children and supportive of families.
Okay. The same anonymous whistleblower raised concern that they were trained as investigators, not as social workers, with specific training to do CARES specialists receive to equip them with the skills necessary to provide families with appropriate care and support. So they're saying that they don't feel like they're even equipped to be CARES specialists.
So there's very extensive CPS training at the beginning of every CPS's time with us. It's about a 9-month ramp-up process. Then for folks who volunteer to be CARES specialists, so I also want to be clear, no one has to be a CARES specialist. And so when doing that, there's an additional several weeks of training. Some of the tools I was describing earlier, the 3 houses, doing intense around motivational interviewing, how to access support for families, how to do a safety assessment in this model. All of that is trained, and I welcome conversation with any staff member who's concerned, doesn't feel like they're prepared. I want them to reach out to me directly. Staff have my email, my phone number, they know how to get me. We really need to make sure that in each instance, however we're responding to a family, that we're doing that with respect, that we're doing that with integrity and excellence. So we'll continue to build on the trainings that we have. We have a plethora of trainings through our Workforce Institute that folks can stack on top of that initial training. So I think what's available is appropriate, but we're always looking to evolve.
Another anonymous whistleblower has claimed that under ACS CARES, ACS must obtain parental consent before interviewing children or neighbors. Is this accurate? If so, how has this impacted ACS' ability to access children's safety?
The reality is we need consent to do our assessment in all instances, investigation or otherwise. And so we first use our engagement skills. We inform families of their rights. We are engaging with families in almost every single instance. There are instances where we've been denied access to the children, and then it's about 2% of cases. We have a process with the family court where we can get an order to produce the child for an assessment, maybe at a child advocacy center. But in the great majority of instances, we're able to engage with the family.
What enforcement tools are available to CARES specialists to ensure that families are not only receive referrals to necessary resources, but utilize the resources effectively? So
after a CARES case, there's a referral often to preventive services. That case does close, right? So it's not continued involvement from a child protective team, but very often, I think in about a third of the cases, there's a preventive handoff, a preventive worker who can continue that service. Sometimes it's a mental health counselor. We have a disabilities unit that helps families navigate with OPWDD. Sometimes the parent has a cognitive challenge that needs to get met there. And so we're really trying to work, to your point, right, to make sure that everybody has access to the full continuum. It's not always an ACS service that is appropriate. Sometimes it's a mental health service or something else, and so they can support them to gain access there.
What data does ACS use to evaluate the success of CARES model in stabilizing families and preventing foster care placements?
Yeah, we use the same data as we do for investigations. It's very key that we look at repeat maltreatment. So you'll see over the last several years, we've had a steady decline in repeat maltreatment, which is a child, there was an indicated a maltreatment case, and then it happened again within that year. We're at a pretty much an all-time low, around 13%. We use the same thing for CARES. There's not an indication, but is there a call again to, is there a call that comes back after a CARES case that there's another concern of maltreatment? Is one way we look at it. We also have a CARES forum that is sort of the CARES equivalent of ChildStat, where we look at everything from caseloads. We talk about engaging families. We dive deep into a particular case. We evaluate how CARES is distributed by race to make sure that there's equity there, and a variety of other ways.
I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Menon, who has joined us, and Councilmember Sanchez, who's online. I have a lot more questions, but I'm going to yield it to my colleagues, and I guess the public I have some remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. My name is Jamani Williams, Public Advocate for the City of New York. Thank you, Chair Stevens, and the members of the Committee on Children and Youth for holding this hearing today. I plan to give this testimony before your testimony, so apologies, a bit late. In 2023, the number of children who entered foster care in New York City was just over 11,000, with an average daily population of almost 7,000. Youth in foster care are disproportionately likely to have mental health challenges. Being in foster care in itself can be traumatic, and these youth have been often traumatized by abuse, neglect, and exposure to domestic violence or substance use in their original homes. These adverse childhood experiences, defined by the CDC as potentially traumatic events that occur in childhood before the age of 18, can have long-lasting effects on health, determinants of health, can even be more likely to be involved in the legal system, and hurts well-being in childhood and life opportunities well into adulthood. Treating youth in or who have experienced foster care can be challenging for very many reasons, including the severity and complexity of the mental health needs and the transitory nature of foster care, with youth frequently moving homes. It is far too easy for these youth to slip through the cracks and never receive the services and support they need, and we must ensure a continuity of care. That's why I am a co-sponsor of Intro 652, introduced by Councilmember Sanchez, which is being heard today, one of the bills. This bill will require DOHMH Commissioner to create a pilot program to provide free mental health services to youth who are returned to their homes after ACS removal. It would also require the Commissioner of DOHMH and ACS to work together to publicize these programs through culturally appropriate outreach and city websites. Do want to make sure, I know there's some concerns about how this would operate, and making sure that the folks who are closest to the ground and have the expertise are the ones that take the lead on the program, with ACS hopefully in a more supportive role. I also just want to say tangentially, I do know that how difficult it is to try to find the balance, making sure you're saving lives, and also not overly punishing particular communities by removing their children when they don't need to be removed. I did want to point out, I'd be remiss to say, I think it would be helpful if some of the reports that ACS refuses to put out after a child did die might be helpful in moving us in the right direction. And I hope that ACS reconsiders not releasing those reports for the public to take a look at. Thank you. I don't, but I'll ask one now. About the report. No, but I am. It is frustrating to know, and this is not about the bills, but since you're here, the reports that ACS just refuses to put out, and I know that privacy is one of the issues, but I feel like it can be redacted in a way that can help us all try to find the balance that we're trying to find. These are very heartbreaking cases, but I think it's helpful, and I think experts have pointed out that how helpful it is if everyone can look at these reports to really figure out what happened, what went wrong.
Thanks, Public Advocate. And I agree with you. We do put out a report annually looking at trends as it relates to fatalities, and we're going to continue to do that. The state also puts out reports around each fatality as well, so they're overseeing the ACS practice and where there's been any ACS involvement. We are looking, to your point, I understand the need for transparency while we are protecting children's rights. There's siblings in some of these instances that are in our care who we need to make sure we're very careful about how we talk about their sibling and things that went on in those instances. One of the ways, and we're going to try to strike that balance, is to reconvene a group of experts who can come in, have deeper access to make sure, and then they can sort of speak to what they're seeing. Those experts can be community advocates, parents, child abuse pediatricians, et cetera. We want to make sure we're protecting children who don't need to read more in the paper about what the ACS commissioner said about their particular family, at the same time to make sure there's transparency and that we're continuously learning. Some of the things I described today around arriving the FPP program and other strategies result from some of that reflection. Some of the work that we do around youth, the Fair Futures programming, we know there's a generational impact here. That comes from some of the learning. It was in our last fatality report, at least in part. And so we are committed to that transparency while making sure that we follow the law, which demands that we consider the effect on the surviving siblings. And I think reconvening this panel should be helpful.
Thank you for that. And obviously, unfortunately, Black and brown communities are usually the ones hit the hardest and most traumatized. And it is helpful if transparency is paramount to try to help people who are frequently dealing with agencies that they just may not trust. So hopefully that panel will be convened sooner than later.
Yeah, it will.
And we can find a way to get these reports out with the sensitivities you're speaking about sooner than later, so that there's more transparency and people feel more comfortable. And just with the, as I mentioned with the bill, hopefully this bill passes, but with the pilot program, we can have folks that communities trust to put together these programs in the lead to make sure it's impactful and culturally competent.
And I'll just add that for all of our programs, that's the way it should be, and we're working on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Public Advocate.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And just even really briefly around that, I just wanted to just ask a question around, because isn't it up to the discretion of the commissioner to decide whether to put those reports out? And are we not at a place where we can actually put out pieces of the case that are not actually, revealing details, but also just allowing transparency? Because it's to my understanding that past commissioners did put out those reports, and it wasn't in the sense of like they were able to protect privacy. So is this something that you're choosing to do, or is this something that you're still trying to figure out as a commissioner?
So, the law is a state law, at least law, and it says that it is confidential. Mm-hmm. And that if the commissioner has determined that it is not counter to the interests of the surviving siblings, information can be released about the case. And in some instances that have been reported publicly, we haven't been involved in years. And so I think I don't want the benefit to, whether we're sort of clearing our name or something to be the nexus of the decision. It has to be around the surviving siblings. The other thing that we are making sure we're doing is that we're learning in a way that is really thoughtful. If you look at industries that have created more safety, take the airline industry. The NTSB takes 18 months to review everything. We interview staff who were involved. What was your caseload? What was your experience? What did your supervisor say? We look at all of the elements that were going on in that instance, and then we bring that together to make sure we're not learning a reaction from one instance, but we're really learning deep. And so I think the process is a strong process. I do think I hear the call for that process to be more fully transparent and understood. And so that's why I think bringing in this group of experts is necessary. ACS used to do that. I'm bringing that back so we can look at trends. Most of the instances of child fatalities where ACS has been involved in the last 10 years, that's the number that gets publicly reported, are accidental. And so a lot of the work that Liz and her team lead around safe sleep, around lock boxes for medication, those are the kinds of things that we've also learned from these fatality reports. I'd love to go through the most recent one with you and sort of see where you think there are ways in which we can learn better, get stronger, but I do want to make sure that we maintain a culture at ACS about learning rather than blame, because blame has led us down a path in the past where we make decisions based on fear. That is not good for children, that is not good for families. It's got to be based on the best assessment of that individual family.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to go on record for saying I am a person who truly believes that we have to protect children, and some of that is keeping certain things confidential and also not having all of their grueling details being exposed for everyone to read. But we do have to have a balance of what does transparency look like, and how do we make sure that we're able to hold not only ACS accountable, but all parties accountable for the things that are taking place. So, I do appreciate the approach around saying, like, we do want to find a balance between the two, but I do think, especially with, some of the recent deaths that's been going on with the children, for me, it's a non-negotiable, right? Like, so it's like, how do we make it better and how do we do it quickly? But I don't like to be reactive either. So there is a fine balance. I do have some more questions, but I'm going to pass it over to Councilmember Joseph, who has some questions.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Just have a couple of questions around, so what mechanisms you have in place, right, to review, oversee decisions when you close a case involving families with prior ACS involvement? What's the timeline look like, and what does that involve when you decide that?
So we use prior involvement to understand there's a practice at ACS that we review prior involvement to help us in the assessment. As you know, Councilmember, we have consultants around substance abuse, domestic violence, inter-partner violence, mental health, and we have investigative consultants that are most often former detectives and NYPD. We have to get the assessment right in that period, right? The ACS involvement, unless court mandated, ends. And typically it ends within that 60-day period. And so that is our opportunity to make sure we're getting it right. We have a lot of mechanisms in place to make sure that we're getting it right. We have expert, experienced CPS who are coaches. They take cases that have been flagged as high risk, they reach out to the child protective teams, and they coach them through the investigation while it's active. We just also expanded that approach by having our highest level, we redeployed all of our child protective team leadership out into the boroughs. They don't need to be in Central. And they are doing additional reviews of those highest risk cases across boroughs to make sure that there's some level of reliability and some
And do teams communicate with each other if there's a red flag?
They do. And so especially, having those consultants, having the investigative consultant, and having our CPS come back for supervision. So we are making serious investments in leadership. Decision-making is difficult, right? It's something that we have to make sure we're getting it right each and every time, and finding ways. Our job is to mitigate the risks to children, to, as best we can, eliminate those risks. Most often that's by supporting the family. And so coming up with creative ideas with the family, coming up with good decisions to say, is this something we do need to bring to court because the behavior or circumstances is creating serious risks to children. So it's really not about after the case, it's about getting it right during that moment.
And if you get it wrong, do you go back and fix it?
Well, if we get it wrong, we are constantly learning from that, right? We have another quality assurance unit that's dedicated to reviewing cases that have closed over the past 6 months. If they say, hey, we can do something differently, they convene with the borough leadership team, they come up with quality action plans. So we're constantly building on that learning. Every week we're in child stat, I'm missing it today. And in that, we're looking at data, we're hearing the trends that the staff are seeing. And I've created something called, the team's called Reverse Child Stat, but it's Systemic Child Stat. Basically, it's the opportunity for the borough offices to tell us what they need. Transportation's not coming quick enough. We need more support for this kind of instance. And so we are trying to be very responsive to the needs of our staff, who I just have to say thank you to. We have amazing 1,100 CPS today who are active, who are always trying to learn and improve their skills.
One of your staffers, what does the caseload look like for them? Because that's one of the things we heard a lot.
It
that
is
your staff has huge caseloads, and sometimes kids fall through the crack because of the caseloads.
It's so important. In my career at ACS and other places, workload is an essential factor to get right if we get it wrong, and we really get ourselves off track. They're 7.5 today. We have 98% of our staff have caseloads under 12, because an average can skew it. So 12 is the national standard, and so we're always making sure we're not only looking at the average, but looking at how many staff are below that national standard. We have the lowest caseloads in the state, and I'd probably argue in most places in the country. This is an investment, and I'm grateful to OMB and others that we have not stepped off the gas. There was during the previous administration, there was a pause in hiring during the pandemic. We got right to work and have been hiring ever since, and we now have the highest number of active CPS that we've had in years.
What does aftercare look like when a case is closed? Can you walk us through that?
Aftercare would look like prevention. We have a full continuum of services. We have services that are geared towards family, services that are geared towards family treatment, services that are geared to navigating families to supports and services, meeting concrete needs. We serve about 32,000 children and their families in preventive services every year. This is the nation's biggest continuum of preventive services. We are adding to that, as you know, family enrichment centers. A ton of the work that we've been doing around childcare and low-income vouchers, I think, is very important to the well-being of children and their families. And so each piece that we are adding, the school-based early support, is adding to that continuum.
Okay, thank you. Chair, thank you. I know that in November of 2024, you added about $150,000 for city funding for the fiscal 2025 to support a new pilot program called Future Force Career for Young Women of Color in Foster Care. Can you tell us a bit more about this program? When is it going to start? And who will be the target of this project?
Yeah, this is going to combine with all of our Fair Futures work, and we're going to be really focused on career and vocational with this program. Our Division of Family Permanency Services has a dedicated vocational leader, Ray Singleton, who connects into, Chair Stevens will be happy about this, we're not recreating, we are connecting into all of the things that the city has so we can make sure that the workforce opportunities are there.
What services will you be providing?
This will include all of the coaching work. It's a small grant, right? So it really helps us to integrate the vocational work into things like Fair Futures and other coaching supports.
How many young women are you serving? What's the cohort? What's the number?
I have to get the number for you.
Thank you. How do you plan on promoting this program and implementing it into youth throughout the foster care network? How are you going to do the outreach for our foster youth?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've reached 4,000 youth in foster care through Fair Futures in the past year. The Center for Fair Futures, which is a sort of independent group that you know well, has very regular forums with every single coach, regardless of what agency they're assigned at, whatever foster care agency they're assigned at. Ray's team is also involved there on the juvenile justice side for Fair Futures. They're constantly doing additional trainings and support and getting information out. They also have a convening monthly with all of their provider stakeholders. There's about 100 organizations that have signed on. They come together to share resources. So we're going to infuse it into that and make sure folks know what's available.
That will make Chair Stevens very happy. Are you planning to distribute this across the 5 boroughs?
I don't know the answer to that. I think it depends on sort of where where the interest is from young people. So we'll let you know how it goes in the rollout.
All right, I'll come around. But thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Williams.
Hi, Councilmember.
Hello. My question is about prevention services, and this is just a problem I have like across the board with ACS. Different providers provide different things, and sometimes there isn't a continuity of services across the agency. So families have reported inconsistencies in the support they receive from preventative services, which appear to vary based on the assigned agency, the time of year services begin, and the specific needs of the family. While some families may receive material assistance, such as beds for their home, others only receive bi-monthly visits. How are the decisions made regarding what services and/or material resources a family receives? Are there efforts towards making sure that all families have the same access to support no matter which preventative agency they are working with? And how does ACS choose what preventative services to offer? Is this based on the needs expressed by the families? And I remember the first time that I learned about this was talking to some young folks who were aging out of foster care, and they were talking about how, talking to their friends who are in different programs, like one program offered like the sky, the moon, and the stars, and the other program was like, here's your bag and a Metro card, have fun. And I was like, that's so crazy that different agencies offer different things. And so when I saw this question, I'm like, oh, so now in a different kind of like program, it's a similar sort of accusation that ACS isn't, providing the robust oversight to these various agencies to make sure that they're providing the same level of care and support.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. I'm going to let Deputy Commissioner Linares speak to that. I would just say one thing. We have to have a full continuum of services. There should be consistency in what's available. In the instance that you described, right, there were providers, we were proud to be one, who were saying we need to go above and beyond what is expected. That led to Fair Futures, where everyone's getting that now. We want to build on provider innovation and success, and so, but then we got to put the resources to it. I'm going to let Louisa talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Council Williams. As a commissioner mentioned, ACS has a continuum of services, and that is purposeful. We have different program types that really address the different circumstances that the family may come in with. So for instance, if we have a family that is presenting with drug misuse or mental health concerns, we have our family treatment rehabilitation programs. Those programs are, the staffing structure are specific to address those specific issues. Equally, if we have a family, for instance, with a baby and there's attachment issue and trauma, we will do our best to match that family to our CPP program or child and parent psychotherapy. So you should expect a difference in terms of the different program types. That's part of the reason why we have each model available at each borough, so that regardless of where you live, your family circumstances should be matched to your need. I think that when it comes to concrete resources, I agree that we have some differences in how providers are addressing some of those issues. We do have, within the Division of Prevention Services, a team that's dedicated to providing beds and cribs, as the Commissioner said earlier, for the child protection staff. That is also true when the family is actively receiving prevention services. We can have, if the providers can do beds, cribs, extermination services. In fact, in the last 3 months, we had about 600 requests for beds and cribs. Perhaps we need to do a better job of getting the provider, this information out to all of the providers across. We also need to think about our funding structure to figure out where there's room for innovation. I can tell you that we have providers, for instance, that have, since my appointment in this role, that have requested things like, we want to do tutoring. And we were able to approve a request for tutoring program for one specific agency. So while that's not a service that a youth or student can use across the system. We do have one provider that, using their thinking, their innovation, and the internal resources, was able to say, we can provide this to our prevention program. Ideally, we would like to be able to do that across the board, and I think we are in constant conversations thinking about how can we do that best.
I just want to say that I really appreciate that transparency, and I don't know, I'm just having a moment, because I feel like a lot of times in these hearings, like, we are just trying to get the information, and what gets presented isn't always like what we're trying to get. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for the transparency, and like, please let us know how we could maybe like advocate for, you know, specific resources to be allocated to these programs so that you could have a continuum of services. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Menon?
Thank you so much. I first really want to thank the chair for holding this very important hearing on this topic. So I have a couple questions. For ACS, in your testimony, you say that your support line is available to help connect families to free services in their community, regardless of immigration status. My question there is, with the incoming Trump administration and the potential of mass deportations, what is the agency doing to assure families that their information will be kept confidential? And moreover, we know that there is a great distrust of government right now, even at the municipal level. So what specifically, proactively, is the agency doing to address this issue?
Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember. It's so important. We are currently working with Moya to develop a full-scale action plan that lets families know about their rights, that their information will be protected. We're also looking at our technology around that to make certain that it's protected. We have programs that you've supported, like Promise NYC, that we want to make sure. So we're going through every single layer to make sure that we are as protective as possible. We also are going to be working on some information to families about what to do if they're concerned, to make sure that they have appropriate plans in place for children who, depending on the decision that the family is forced to make. We've been really lucky to have the support of Moya. I met with Commissioner Castro a couple weeks ago. We're going to be doing some press around this, and we will, you know, one thing I can think we can add is to add to our hotline a very clear right away at the outset that immigration status is not something that we consider.
Okay, I mean, I would just recommend, again, the families that need the support the most are going to feel a real deterrent to be calling a support line. So we've got to be proactive
Absolutely.
About that.
And we're going to get trainings out for both our staff and provider staff. There are many providers, many of the ones we work with in Promise NYC, who have the trust of families, and so it's really key that we get them trained to make sure that they understand all of the sanctuary policies.
The other question I have on the testimony is for DOHMH. You testified that regarding Intro 652, you wrote, this legislation is redundant of existing services provided and facilitated by ACS. That's surprising to me. Why do you feel that it's redundant, and can you be very specific about why?
Yeah, I don't know if redundant's the right word. That wasn't sort of, this is essential. The providers, the foster care providers outside of ACS receive Medicaid dollars from the state to provide services to children while they're in care. So the established Article 29I clinics, young people are receiving therapy through that while in care. That can continue for a year after. They also can, some of the providers have Article 28 clinics, and they can continue to provide therapy beyond that year. During that year, they're also responsible for navigating families to the appropriate services that are necessary. So it's essential that it happen. There are flaws in the Medicaid funding for that. What we'd like to see is just have a conversation about the best way we can strengthen that system rather than creating a new system. There needs to be additional supports here. We're working with Northwell as an example to get young people who are leaving foster care access to their full suite of services. And a lot of the work that the Fair Futures coaches also do is connecting young people. In this instance of reunification, there is a service, we just want to strengthen it.
So how specifically do you propose to strengthen the system?
By adding resources to the providers, advocating with the state to strengthen the rates there. It's been difficult for them to build out some of their CFTSS services. These are the kinds of services that are very accessible to young people, but the rate structure has been difficult for providers to get it up. And so whether the investment is into building on the therapists that they have there already and sort of strengthen that infrastructure, or if it's around advocacy, I think there's a few ways we can get there.
Okay, the last thing I'll say is, again, sort of where I started, with the incoming Trump administration, signs are pointing to cuts in funding. So the idea that we're going to be strengthening resources, and there's real doubts that that's going to happen, and actually the opposite is going to happen. So we want to make sure that agencies are prepared for that.
Absolutely. And if I didn't communicate it well, I think that's even more the reason to try to build on the existing infrastructure and put more resources there. The only perspective difference that we have is sort of where we should sort of start that conversation.
Councilmember Lee?
So I'll actually start with where she ended. So any advocacy that we could help each other on with increasing the Medicaid rates, would love that, because I've been trying to do that for a while. And I've actually, thankfully, Ann Sullivan, at least on the OMH side, has been very open to that. She totally gets it and recognizes that on the state level, not only do we need to increase the rates, but also expand the types of services that get reimbursed that are not in the codes right now, which desperately we need to do the work. So just wanted to, so just wanted to start with that. And forgive me, because I'm not as familiar with the ACS programming and all that you offer, which is a lot, it seems like, right? So it's good. But if you could help me walk through, because it seems like with the continuum, and these are just more clarifying questions. Sure. So is it safe to assume that all these programs sort of fall within the continuum? So is the continuum sort of inclusive of the programs that you're outlining here? And then also, if you could just let us know the 11 community partners you have through the supporting community and family well-being programs, do some of those overlap also with the 43 providers that you have for the FEC, wait, no, not the FECs, the continuum prevention services, and how much of that overlaps, if you could just, in terms of the provider side?
Sure. Excuse me. So the answer is yes, what we're describing, it fits within the continuum. There is significant overlap with the community partnership programs intentionally, and so this is providers. We were with the East Harlem Community Partnership a couple weeks ago. They have a group of providers that have come together around the issues that they're seeing in their neighborhood, and they're making sure they're sharing information. And so sometimes it's about a service that ACS provides or a service that DYCD provides, and they can share information. They're also flagging to us trends that they're seeing. We've had a lot of conversations about migrant youth as an example with the East Harlem Community Partnership. And the other piece was that's the 11 and the 43, and the family enrichment centers. There's overlap there too, but we're really excited that we've got a number of new providers who have entered into this work. Settlement houses that are not traditionally ACS contractors, some faith-based organizations, some community development organizations. Anyone I'm leaving out? So we are seeing a broader array of organizational types.
And does that include, like you mentioned, the Article 28s, 31s, 29Is as well?
That's a little different. So those are typically, every single agency that provides foster care has the 29I.
Okay.
Some of them also have other mental health and therapeutic services that they provide.
Okay. And do you, just out of curiosity, because I'm just thinking, a layperson and a lot of our caseworkers that, because we obviously get incoming calls all the time about cases in our districts that are happening. So do you have like a cheat sheet or something? Because you know why? I'm just trying to picture it in terms.
That I asked for that.
Huh?
I asked for them now.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, you know why? Because I'm thinking of it almost like those storybooks as you're a kid. It's like choose your own adventure, where it's like, okay, if you have this issue, go down this path, and this one is this. And I almost feel like we need some sort of flow chart or diagram to show. Yeah. To our staff even how to train ourselves about what different types of services are available.
Yeah, we have a training. Sometimes it's done by our borough offices. Sometimes it's done by our community partnerships around demystifying ACS and sort of understanding the process and how it all works. I think often when we get calls from council offices, also explaining some of how the court system works, right? Because the judge is a major decision maker in many of these instances, and so I think if we can sort of infuse some of that in addition, we'll work on that.
Okay. And then also, two-part question, which is, I know, you work with a bunch of different other city agencies, and so what system, database do you use? How are you tracking the communications between different agencies about specific families? Is there a centralized database? And the reason why I'm asking this question, yeah, I know. The reason why I'm asking this question is because I always, when I think of, because my portfolio is more on the mental health, disabilities, addiction side, and so when I think of all the programs that DOHMH has and the different agencies they work with, including the whole spectrum of mental health issues, it boggles my mind because I'm like, I don't think we have a great way of tracking who's receiving what services, benefits, what other agencies they've gone to, what other services they've already used, and so I'm just curious to know for you all in your programming that you're doing here, how you keep track of that.
Yeah, a variety of ways, and there are some limitations, right? Because the family's information, to the earlier point, is often protected, and so we have to be careful. I think a family encountering ACS for the first time might not want us to know right away about their mental health. So I think what's really key there is some work we do with public schools. We get data matches constantly to look around attendance and making sure that we can support young people who are in foster care. We do a lot of work with DYCD, had over 1,000 young people in SYEP, and a lot of young people across their programming. We also make sure that we're in communication in each individual instance. So we'll work with the school, with a family, we'll work with the mental health provider. So we have ways of gathering that information while making sure we're protecting information that should be protected.
Okay, and I think that's a challenge we all face with the HIPAA and all that stuff. And just one question,
Yeah.
one more. Okay, and this is sort of, if you can't answer this now, but I would love to hear your thoughts from your perspective, because if you had sort of a magic wand and you could sort of deconstruct what's there now at ACS and reconstruct, right? And I know that's a big question, right? But I guess what I'm trying to get
You don't
at...
have all day to answer that.
Yeah,
either.
no. So, but no, because I'm just curious to know what are the biggest, I guess, I know it's a big one, but if you could reconstruct everything, because I know, as you mentioned, there are some redundancies, right? So if you could reconstruct things and sort of compare it to what's available now, like what would you say are the biggest barriers to you doing your job and streamlining things so that you could be more efficient and help people more?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember. I could talk to you about it all day. We did just release our fall strategic priorities update, which is but let me just say, our vision at ACS is around starting from the very beginning, this particularly as it relates to child protection and to family services. We've got other parts of it like DYFJ. But we get 50,000 reports that the state accepts every year and sends to us. We find maltreatment in about 25% of those instances. And so the first goal is, how do we get families help without having to go through all of that? And so retraining schools, retraining shelters, retraining hospitals, because over the years we've said, when in doubt, call us. When in doubt, call the state central registry, I should say, register. So now that's why we have the preventive hotline in place. That's why we're pushing out so much more around childcare and family enrichment centers. The other piece of that is to continue to invest in excellent assessment for a much narrower group of children who may be in danger. And so we don't reflexively just bring families to court anymore to say you have to do this service. We really have to use our engagement skills and get families to work on and have them feel helped. And so, but in those instances where a child's in danger, to bring the best assessment through our child advocacy centers, through our training of our staff and the consultancies that they get, and bringing that expertise. And so to make sure that we, in a very targeted way, do not repeat the mistakes of the past while making sure children are safe in our city. I could go on and on and on, but that's the core of our vision. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have I have a number of questions, but I have a few follow-up questions from before. And just asking, I know when we're talking about the reports being put out and the commissioner having discretion, but I know we said that some of it is around surviving siblings. What happened if there's no surviving siblings? Or is there a reason why we're not putting our reports then? Because I know that that's the discretion sometimes with the commissioner to use. Do you have a reasoning for that?
First, unfortunately, in the great majority of cases, there are surviving siblings. It does change the calculation. Again, I think what's key here is that we make sure we're learning the right lesson. And so we go through that human factors debriefing, we do interviews of staff, we look at all of the ways in which we could have either made a different decision or put a different intervention in place where we were involved. We look at how recently we were involved with the family, whether that was a month or 8 years. In some of these cases that have been publicly reported, it is across that. And we do that in that way where we provide that fatality report. After that, all of that sort of trend analysis and case analysis. Again, we are going to bring experts back into that conversation. That was something that ACS used to do. I'm not quite clear when or why it was sort of taken away, but we're going to bring that back.
Yeah, and when you're thinking about it, please see me as a thought partner. I think that this is one of the things that has been stressing me out a lot, even as becoming the chair, and thinking about how do we prevent it, and also not just always be reactive, because I think that sometimes we'll be reactive and then we'll put things in place that hurt us down the line because it creates more bureaucracy. So definitely see me as a thought partner in a partnership.
Thank you, and we're urgent about it, Chair. We appreciate that.
So families and their advocates have reported that being informed that ACS requires a court order to provide substantial material support. Can prevention services be offered without a court order? And what are those circumstances? Because I know we have all these gateways where we're trying with the FECs and the school and all this, but I'm still hearing from advocates that it is sometimes they are still needing to get court order to get some of the services, families that they need.
They absolutely do not need to get a court order for services. They're free and voluntary unless there is a court order.
Because I'm hearing that
about
sometimes
25%.
I'm hearing that sometimes with the court order, they're getting more services, and so, you know.
There are times I'd have to sort of look into the specific circumstances. That's not the case in our system. There's no wait list. And so if there's availability of services today, and we've got a lot that we can offer before we get anywhere near wait lists. The only thing I can think of is perhaps there's a judge's order helps trump a mental health service or something like that would be more available to a family, but I would love to look into the instances so we can understand it.
I know we have some providers who will testify, so maybe they'll clarify in their testimony later on.
Great.
Some families are receiving preventative services can access housing stipends. What is the criteria for receiving the housing in a housing crisis?
Yes, so the state just increased it from $300 to $725, which is helpful. It's obviously only
$300?
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that part. The $725 is still only supplemental, right? So this can be combined with a voucher. It can support an arrears payment. Some of the times
$700 for arrears.
No, it can be combined over. It's up to 2 years, and you can have lump sum payments as a part of it. Okay. I'm with you. I would love it to be a lot more than $725. That the state.
Do they not know the average for what rent is in New York City? I mean, maybe that might work in another part of New York State, but it's not working in the city.
I won't dare to answer for them.
Well, I'm answering for them.
Okay.
I know.
We also are working around where there's housing insecurity or families we're working with in preventive to get them city FEPS vouchers and to help them navigate towards lease signing and then support during that first year.
One of the things that I'm hearing too is just like, well, not hearing, but I know that family often have issues with overnight childcare and things like that. Does Preventive Services provide overnight or in-house home childcare for families?
Yeah, there's two ways we can support this. It is somewhat limited. One is homemaking. I'm also going to ask Liz to speak a little bit about how childcare can be used in this instance.
So when a family is in prevention services and receives childcare assistance through a voucher, they can use that voucher at any registered or licensed childcare provider in the city, and that can include providers that have non-traditional hours, which might be overnight. But
Not a lot of providers that provide that.
there aren't a lot. The other option,
Non-existent.
yep. So a lot of sort of the bounds around how childcare assistance vouchers can be used is dictated by state and federal rules related to how they're funded. So families in prevention services are receiving a voucher that is funded with state prevention stream, and that requires that the child care voucher be used at a licensed center or a registered home-based provider. If a family in prevention services is interested in using a voucher with an informal provider, meaning a friend, a family member, a neighbor, to watch that child overnight in their own home, they can apply for a different type of voucher, which is funded by the State Child Care Block Grant, which includes a lot of federal funds, and therefore federal and state rules apply. So in order to have that type of voucher, a family would have to have certain income eligibility criteria, be engaged in certain activities. So that is another path for
What would
them.
that activity be?
So they need to be working in job search, engaged in particular types of services, for example, substance misuse services, services around intimate partner violence, or be in an educational program. Also, importantly, those vouchers are limited based on federal rules to children that are citizens or have legal permanent residence. So there is a limited sort of population of children that we can support with those, but in instances where families are available, having that access to informal care is really critical to serving that overnight need.
Yeah, I mean, that has been one of the things that I've heard a lot, with just like folks, especially who, work late night, they can't find childcare. So even having flexibility of having someone do it, they might not have someone that they can trust. That can then lead to a case.
Right.
So I think it's a revolving door. So I think that is definitely something that we need to be thinking about and strategizing, especially with all these programs that keep happening that I think are kind of duplicative. This is something that I think we have not even tried to really solve as a city. So we'd definitely love to think through some ideas around that. Some families state that they cannot be honest with preventative service workers about their true needs and true nature of their family's hardship because preventative services workers work for ACS or in contact with them. And so preventative services workers are often connected directly to ACS or foster care agencies where the childs are placed. How can ACS build trust with these families to receive preventative services? I mean, I used to say this all the time to a lot of agencies where it's like, you're the provider, you're the funder, you're all the things, and then we're trying to have open dialogue. So how do you build trust? And I know specifically when you think about like Black and brown communities who have a rate of removal than other folks, like why would I trust you to be here to help now? So what are you doing to kind of rebuild some of that trust?
Yeah, a lot of this goes to the work to support our preventive providers in community where they have, in some instances, deeper trust, and to use sort of a lot of conversation that Louisa and her team have been bringing together to hear what different providers do to build that trust. I think it also is important that families don't have to come for an investigation to get that service. I think that will help. An example, a lot of providers who do this very well embed the preventive services within their whole continuum of services. So they provide tax support, or they provide citizenship help, or they provide language support. And I think having a place where it's known in the community, I think that is very, very key. I also think some of the work that we're doing to try in school-based early support to try to serve families without signing up for a case. Nobody wants to be a case, is really critical here. Using our skills like motivational interviewing as well to make sure that we're setting goals and being helpful to families We have a lot of work to do in this regard. I also think it's important that we rely on services outside of our continuum. We walk with extraordinary power at ACS, right? We can remove a child from their home. And so it's important for us to acknowledge that the services don't always have to be from ACS. And we're consistently looking at, we're having conversations with the health department right now about ways in which they might be able to provide some services. So those are sort of longer term planning conversations, but very important ones.
No, I actually really appreciate that, because I think sometimes ACS doesn't acknowledge some of the things that it's like, yes, you do have that power, and so that lingers where it's like, I don't want my child taken away. And so sometimes it does make sense to say, how do we, shift it somewhere else where families feel more comfortable. So I actually do appreciate that that is even part of the thought process, because sometimes, families might not feel that way. Since 2000, ACS has made a significant policy shift in reducing children's enrollment to foster care and shifting them to preventative services. How does ACS measure long-term impact of preventative services program on family stability, child welfare outcomes?
Yeah, we have information that around the success of preventive based on whether families come back to our attention or services. And so it is very unlikely that a family, after completing preventive services, will come back to ACS. There's about a 5% re-indication of maltreatment and about a 1% chance of entry into foster care. We need to look at other ways to understand families' wellness. We work with our public health partners, because we're not going to continue to provide services for families for decades, but looking at how children are doing in school, health outcomes, et cetera, is important to understand the full continuum and the full effect of the city's engagement with families.
How does ACS ensure that preventative services are culturally competent and meet the needs of diverse needs of families across the city?
I've just been talking a lot, so I'm going to let Luisa get this one.
He would like a sip of water.
So we do a lot of different things. We have programs that are serve specific culture. For instance, Arab American is one of them. They're in Brooklyn. We also have programs like Chinese American Council that's actually here with us this morning, and I hope they'll testify later. And in addition, we have a lot of training that is provided to our Workforce Institute. We also have language access. When the family is receiving prevention services, they are able to either use the line for services, or they can use an interpreter as well. We know that that's not the best option when there is a therapeutic session, for instance. However, sometimes that's better than no service at all. So when the family, when the provider doesn't have a case planner staff that is of the same culture of the neighborhood for whatever reason, then they're able to use interpreter services. It's a priority, definitely a priority for us.
I'd also add, a key difference in the last several years is the investment in parent advocates, both in our preventive system and in our foster care system. Obviously, there's a lot more initial trust with a parent who has lived experience, and so that's been a really important part of building cultural competence.
Yeah, I've definitely heard parents say that they actually prefer the parent advocates and folks who actually understand them, and would like to see more investment in that area from ACS. How does ACS explain the increase in daily average participating despite the decline in overall numbers of children served annually? Does this reflect a long-term engagement period or a shift in services daily model?
So we're seeing an increase in new families coming into preventive services. This just means there's a slightly lower length of service. Use some of the evidence-based models are about 6 months average. Some of the family support are more like a year. So some shift to evidence-based. I think we're going to see both go up, both the new families coming in and the number served, as we really launch the school-based support programs.
Since the implementation of new contracts in 2020, what trends are you observed in foster care and entries and family outcomes?
So there's an enormous shift since 2020. Really, obviously we had a major pandemic there. In compared to 2019, 2018, 2017, about 50% fewer families are going for court-ordered supervision. We're seeing also about a 13% decrease in the number of admissions into foster care pre-pandemic. We learned a lot during the pandemic about getting concrete supports out, providing prevention, and making sure that we continue to do excellent assessments. We're also, there was a lag in sort of connection with prevention services as we brought fewer families to court. Providers had workforce challenges. We're starting to see some of that improve, and that's why we're seeing some of the increases more recently in the number of families served.
I have some funding questions. The fiscal 2024 Mayor's Management Report reports that the number of children receiving daily prevention services increased by 3.9% in fiscal 2024 when compared to fiscal 2023. Despite the increase in utilization, the PEG included in 2025 preliminary plan have not been restored. Does ACS anticipate the preventative services PEG will be restored in the upcoming preliminary plan?
We don't, but we have some important planning underway. So the PEG that we underwent really looked at programs that were seriously underutilized, less than 20%. And so we looked at, are there other providers in that neighborhood that could pick that up, that kind of service? And so it was a very limited PEG around, in the first initial rounds, around where we just were not seeing the uptake in services, and we made sure that the services remained in that community. There was sufficient access for families. The other PEG that we did was to take our FTR program, which is designed for families with substance abuse, mental health challenges, and to look at across the board, utilization was about 60%. And so we said, how can we create a new model budget for a smaller program that actually is more intensive? It was a higher cost per slot. And so we did that. Providers were able to invest some of those. About half of our providers went from 128 to 96. So we saved a little bit of money while still creating a more intensive program. We're going to look at that. We know that providers have been talking to us around workforce. We want to make sure we're infusing concrete needs and services. So we are going to be doing some budget modeling to make sure that the current model is sufficiently supportive and intensive. And we have today, over 2,000 slots available. And so we're looking, as our system has evolved, more family enrichment centers, more other types of support, to make sure that we're keeping it current and making sure that the providers have what they need to provide excellent services.
Yeah, I just feel like that's it's really thoughtful of how you're going about doing it. But I also think that even we're saying that we're using preventative services and it's, we're expanding certain programs and things like that. But if we're still reducing it, that's still a problem. So it's still hard for me to kind of grasp of how we were saying it was underutilized. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't need the spots there. Maybe it needed to have different outreach, or what specific communities was it in, or did we need to change the communities to somewhere else? And so was it really underutilized? Was it not right placement? Was, not the right provider? So I think even saying underutilized, it often feels we know what it is. I get it. Y'all got to find a way to cut the money at. And so it's easier to say that.
Well, I think I absolutely hear what you're saying. We go through that analysis, but if we're able to really stabilize the system, invest in providers, and make sure, and it's a slightly smaller system, and then we see a major increase, we can absolutely advocate to add resources to that. Right now, we just don't want to have those resources not put to work when the providers are telling us.
So you don't see an additional need for capacity with demand increasing? Because there has been an increase in demand.
Not in the foreseeable future, but we're always keeping a very close eye on it. We have about 2,000 slots available today.
Don't worry, I'll help you keep a close eye on it too.
No, you will.
As of November 2024 plan, ACS budget includes $331.6 million for expenditures related to preventative services. Can ACS verify the current budget amount for preventative services in 2025 and out years? And how was that money actually spent in 2024? And how has, all right, I'm gonna stop there. I was about to ask a whole bunch of questions.
So that is correct. FY25 preventive is 332. Home finding, if you add home finding to that, it's about 363 million. It's a separate budget line. We're not counting a lot of the work that we do in FAP or the Family Enrichment Centers in that number. 24 spending for the preventive, the 332, right now is with accruals is 314 million.
With the implementation of the Federal Family First Prevention Act in 2021, an additional funding source became available for preventative services. Can you provide a breakdown of funding sources for preventative service? How much is funded by the city, state, and federal government? What are the state and federal funding sources?
So no dollar has come to New York State from Family First yet. The state is in negotiations with the federal government around that. So the primary source is what was once 65.35 is now 62.38, and so for every dollar that the city spends on preventive services, the state matches it, provides 62 cents to cover that. You know, the real hope I would have if Family First can become a reality is that would provide resources for some of the existing system. Family First basically looks like New York City child welfare preventive services. You have to be a candidate for care, you have to have home visits, and so the hope would be if we could really infuse that money into the system, there'd be more and more resources for additional upstream investments, some of the things that community advocates and providers have been asking for. I think that's something we need to keep pushing on together. And the state hopefully will, there's a lot of sort of technical claiming issues and ways in which they have to, it has to be evidence-based. And so Family First, in ways that are slightly unfortunate for New York, kind of mirrors our system. We're grateful that the state has such a generous preventive funding stream. It's been a game changer for New York.
Can ACS verify the budget codes associated with preventative services programming?
We can. Whether I can is a different question. I want to say 1003.
Don't worry, Stephanie has it right there.
Yes, she does. Hold on. Do you want me to hand you the list, Chair?
Yeah, just give me the list. Okay. All right. You give it to the Sergeant of Arms. You're submitting it for the test. Thank you very much. I just have a couple of questions about the legislation, and then I believe Councilmember Williams has some questions. Intro 652 will administer ACS in conjunction with Department of Mental Health to establish a pilot program that will provide mental health services with no cost to children who have been returned to home following a removal. How many youth does ACS anticipate could utilize this service?
So about 1,400 young people reunified with their families. So that's, I think, the pool of services. How we get there, to the point the conversation having earlier with Councilmember Menon, we'd love to be in conversation with the council about the best way to support providers and other community clinics to meet that need.
Do children who are removed and unified already receive court mandates or other ACS provide mental health services? If so, can you please provide details and who pays for those services?
So most of those are Medicaid services. They're not always court mandated. Every child who comes into foster care has an assessment, and the services are based on that assessment. It's the way the Medicaid system works. Children in foster care used to have a separate Medicaid funding. Now they're in managed care, which has had pluses and minuses. So that system does need to continue to be strengthened. Children's mental health system needs to be strengthened in our city and state for sure. And so we want to work together about the best way to strengthen that. We completely agree with the direction of the legislation. I think the question is just how best to get there.
And just because I know for me, I was just like kind of shocked because like when a child is being returned back, what does the aftercare look like? Is it like, okay, they're back with their families, see you later?
Yeah.
Calls if you need anything? How does that work?
It depends on the circumstances around the reunification. So in most instances, there's a trial discharge period of about 6 months where there's continued services. Families can be connected to preventive services. They can be connected to community resources. And there's ongoing monitoring and supervision by the foster care agency until there's a final discharge. It's about a 6-month period of aftercare. There are instances when a judge says the child is coming home today, there is no trial discharge, it is a final discharge, the issues have been resolved here. In those instances, we will offer services, but it's up to the parent.
Intro 9, does ACS provide information about parents and guardians can receive legal services? And at what point of the investigation is this information provided?
So we are providing that at the very onset of the investigation now. And so there's an information sheet in all of the city languages where we tell families that we're there because of a concern that's been called in. We share with them that we're asking for permission to enter their home and assess the children, that they have the right to deny that permission, that they can call an attorney at any point during the investigation, and that if they deny that, we have to seek permission from the family court to continue an assessment. We also provide an information packet that has the local defense organization and resources during that time. To be fully transparent, we are not doing that in about 9% of the instances that are incident response team because of allegations of sexual abuse or serious physical abuse, because we have a sort of a very, very consolidated process to make sure we're responding quickly in instances that require that. It is something that we are continuously assessing. But in 91% of the instances, we're able to provide that information and make sure the families are aware of it. We are always, no matter the case, providing the local defense organizations information to families. So we really appreciate the spirit of this bill.
What mechanics are in place for parents to report if they are not given this information?
So we have our Office of Advocacy, which is available to every family in our system. There also are, obviously, that's the key way would be to report it back to our Office of Advocacy. Their number is included in the information packet. I know you're saying that if they're not getting it. And we also publish the Office of Advocacy on our website. My office receives calls from families, and we look at the trends around that as well.
I just want to say, I think, even Councilmember Lee brought it up. I think that we should also send that information to us because we get those calls as well. Absolutely. I hopefully after this training, all 51 members have a packet from ACS saying, these are the steps that you have, this is the hotline we have, these are the services. I will reach out to Stephanie so we can talk about what that looks like. So, because I think that it's really important that if we have these things in place, then we should be making sure we utilize it. I mean, even Councilman Williams was saying, like, lucky for you, none of the city agencies do this for us. So we really want to be better at, having the information so we don't always have to, like, text the commissioner like, hey, what do we do in this instant? And so we can be a little bit more proactive. Councilman Williams has a couple of closing questions. And then
There's one. I just want, because you mentioned FECs, and I was just wondering, like, what the metrics of success are for FECs. Like, how are you measuring, like, whether or not they're doing what we all intended for them to do?
Yeah, Liz. Liz can do it again.
in the beginning.
Yes, no worries at all. So I want to say first, transparently, this is an expansion that we are in the middle of, so we are still building out how exactly we're going to collect this information. But the goal is to really look at the protective factors, meaning like those things that we know from evidence strengthen the well-being of families and children and have the knock-on effect of preventing child maltreatment. And so those include social connectedness, access to concrete supports to include, food, clothing, sort of like key essentials, but also access to trusted resources and culturally competent resources, parental resilience, a parental awareness of child development and parenting skills. And so, we are looking at how to capture that. What we're currently capturing is what are the offerings, what is the programming, if you will, that each family enrichment center is offering, and how is that linked to those protective factors. We want to get to the place where we are both getting a pulse on, is that outcome really happening, and as importantly, do families feel like it's happening? The other thing that we're really holding family enrichment centers accountable to that is core to the model is that they need to be co-designing with community, because unlike a lot of other models that are, here is sort of the specific prescription of the way a service should be provided, family enrichment centers are really all about putting community in front of planning so that they are tailored to the needs and desires of that particular community.
Yeah, and I thought I was done, but then I had a question around are people referred to FECs, or is it the expectation that the FECs are just so much in the community that they're able to find families in different pockets and communities that need support and make their space available? So I'm actually partnering with the FEC in my district on a toy giveaway, but it just, I think I inserted myself in their toy giveaway, but I feel like outside of the tons of programs and the chair is mentioning, it's I don't know how to utilize them for anything. And then so I don't know who's actually utilizing them and what they're actually doing. I see them around, but I'm not sure. So I'm okay, is there a steady stream of people that are referred to them, or is it just solely reliant on that center itself to be out in the community and conduct their work?
Yeah.
I have a question too, but I'm happy
That's
you
okay.
asked it
No,
again,
yeah.
that it's important that they see that it's not just me.
Yeah.
We're
it's,
very similar.
it's both and.
I should have been here on time.
It's
so
both.
No, I think it's important because it emphasizes that it's not just me experiencing this.
Yeah.
Yep. It's both and. So, and I want to sort of re-emphasize that each family enrichment center, because there were 3 that were initial in the pilot, and the others have been rolling out over the last couple of years. And as you can imagine, sort of building trust in community and establishing yourself as a trusted space and a known space takes time. And so they are different stages of maturation, which might be part of what's going on there. But so absolutely, I think we partner with other city agencies to make sure they're aware of the family enrichment centers, aware of what they do. We do the same sort of internally with our CARES programs, with our CPS, with prevention services. We can always be doing that better and stronger, and we're gonna look to doing that. A lot of the outreach that happens too, though, is through the outreach from that organization themselves, because they were already sort of embedded in the community. And that looks like a lot of different things. Councilmember Stevens was referencing connection to schools. There's also just community walks that family enrichment centers are going on to sort of build trust with community, and and there's that word of mouth that's really important. I think the area that we really want to go deeper in as these family enrichment centers mature is figuring out how do we reach families that wouldn't otherwise just walk in or hear about it.
Yeah, in Southeast Queens, that's a very big problem amongst many different types of service providers and service provider industries, even with housing or food. It's you really have to meet people where they are. It's a marketing, word of mouth kind of issue in Southeast Queens. So I'm just thinking about, family court or the Queens field office. If they have a client that's in a particular program, whatever program they're in, or even foster care families that might be down the block from an FEC, how is a foster care family or another family made aware of something that is in close proximity to where they live? And I just don't know if that's happening. And I pass that FEC all the time. It's on the way to my house. It's on the same block as my office. And I live also off the same block as my office to go home, so I pass it a lot. And I'm always wondering what is happening there and who is actually going inside of that space. And so, yes, sorry that I'm in this slew of questions, but when the chair mentioned FECs, I'm I have so many random questions I didn't even realize I had, just naturally being in the community and interacting with different stakeholders.
Well, we'd love to set up additional time to discuss that. I think one of the things we've been really careful about, right, is people are not sort of you're not getting a case. So like, we don't have, it sort of has some limitations on whether, we don't want people to feel like, oh, my CPS told me I have to go, so I have to go, right? We want to make sure that that word of mouth really does build organically, and some providers are sort of have hit the ground running, and as Liz was saying, some are still sort of building up. But I think we should work together, especially with that one, and think about ways in which we can provide that information. We do have, as Liz was saying earlier, over 200 families who are connecting to services, to some sort of offering each month on average across them. So we're seeing a lot of voting with people's feet. The question of how do we know whether we're reaching everyone is a question we got to continue to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have been here for a very long time, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for the continued work and support. And I will be in touch with your office about getting this information out. Me and Councilmember Williams, now we want to do a FEC tour, so you'll be seeing so much of us in the next couple of months. We really appreciate you at this time, so thank you. We'll be wrapping up for public testimony. Yeah, we're going to do FCC tour. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Stevens.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Councilmember.
It's going to be great.
Anything will be included in the packet.
I want to.
I don't know if you're allowed to. Good job, guys.
Can I
Okay, we're gonna get started for public testimony. I now am opening the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and decorum will be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who are testifying. No video recordings or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but they may submit transcripts of such recordings to a sergeant of arms in conclusion of the hearing. If you wish to speak today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card within the sergeant of arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you have 2 minutes to speak today on today's topic hearing, supporting the arts, preventative services. And with that, I will call my first panel, Daphne Torres Douglas, Jess McGlooney, Bronx Defenders, Nora McCarthy, Nilla, I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, Nataraja, and Tanisha Grant. This is the next panel?
Okay. Greetings to the committee and thank you for the opportunity to testify. I am Daphne Torres Douglas, Vice President at the Children's Village, Harlem Dowling, and Inwood House. We provide one of the broadest continuum preventive programming in New York with an emphasis on trauma-informed, evidence-based family and community programming to help keep youth identified as high risk, safe at home with family. Poverty is a common thread connecting many families entering the preventive, child welfare, and juvenile justice systems. Our preventive programs are essential in addressing trauma, and we also address needs created by poverty. Well-executed, evidence-based preventive services are crucial, effective in helping families to cope with the emotional impact of oppression of poverty, but they do not end poverty. Our families continue to struggle to meet their basic needs: housing and food instability, lack of clothing, etc. Preventive contracts give an illusion that there is funding to provide exceptional preventive services to families. However, prevention misses the mark in 2 areas: providing financial support to social and developmental growth, and we miss the mark when it comes to staff recruitment and retention. Current budgets do not allow for financial assistance of emergent needs for families. Current funding does not allow us to hire or retain staff at comparable salaries offered by our public sector employees like ACS and DOA, or private sector employers who also offer great flexibility around remote work and telehealth. In order to ensure that preventive contracts are sustainable with slots consistently staffed and available to clients, we believe that ACS should recalculate all labor cost lines beginning with the assumption of a $65,000 average salary for bachelor's level caseworkers and the index for OTPS costs against inflation of the local CPI for each year following the initial budget period and renewals going forward for all human services contracts. Thank you.
Sure, why not? Hello? Oh, great. Thank you, Chair Stevens and committee members for this hearing. My name is Tanisha Grant. I am the Executive Director of Parent Support in Parents New York. I am also an impacted person since birth. I am in support of 009 and 0652. All parents should know they have the right to an attorney at first contact with ACS. That's why we are strong supporters of the Family Miranda rights. Too many times for decades, parents are suckled into the system and children are removed from their whole bloodline, like I was in 1976. My birth mom was also in a pilot preventive program, too, but that did not stop me from being separated from my whole family. I was thrown into a closed adoption which was facilitated through Children's Aid Society. Yes, the same foster care agency that created the Orphan Train. The same Children's Aid who now has over 200 employees today. I never received any mental health services as a child, I cannot even describe how hard it is to be a productive adult when you were a child who was destroyed mentally by an uncaring, violent system. I was raped at every facility I entered. This has not ended for a lot of children, of a lot of Black children. We have too many professionals and not enough lived experience experts at the table. We must understand that the people closest to the problems have the answers. This is my life, Chair. I am a survivor of the child welfare system. I know too many children that didn't survive the system. Jordan Neely is one of them. Jordan Neely watched his mother be murdered and was thrown into foster care, and from that system on, he was failed at every institution. And he was killed on a train for having a mental breakdown. As someone who has mental health problems because I was torn away from my family at birth, I strongly urge you to urge ACS to think about that when they are removing children from their family. The mental health issues do not go away when we grow up. Thank you for listening to my testimony, and I look forward to seeing more out of this committee. Thank you.
Chair Stevens and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Jessie McLaughlin, and I'm policy counsel in the Bronx Defenders Family Defense Practice. The Bronx Defenders fights to prevent family separation by the foster system. I just want to note that I came to parent defense work after representing teenagers in the foster system. It's my deep love of young people that first brought me to parent defense, because I came to quickly understand that to support young people, we must support their families. And I'm committed to shrinking the family policing system precisely because I care about the safety and the well-being of young children and families. The best way to prevent harm, including child fatalities, is to ensure that all families have what they need to survive and thrive. Income, financial stability, a high-quality education and healthcare, safe housing, a living wage, access to food, and a reason to hope for a better future. As the committee examines preventative services in this highly charged time of publicized tragedy, I urge you and the City Council to stand firm in your commitment to keeping families together, not just by refusing to roll back preventative services, but also by challenging the practices by which poor Black, Latina families are weakened by surveillance, investigation, and separation. We know that the main reason children are entering the family regulation system is because of racism, poverty, and the structural disinvestment of poor Black and Latina communities. Preventative services are often held out as the solution to this problem. The theory of change in the Bronx Family Court, and in court around the city, is that preventative services, whether in the form of functional therapy or in trainings like parenting classes, can solve risk in families. I do not to sit before you to say that therapy cannot be helpful, but requiring a parent to engage in services by an agency contracting with ACS, in other words, the prosecuting agency, does not build trust between parents and service providers.
I see that your testimony is rather lengthy, so you should wrap it up in the next 10 seconds.
Okay. I just want to make one other point briefly, which is that preventative services are a de facto extension of ACS, and the City Council should be investing in actual resources, community-based resources, and providing financial resources to family in the form of guaranteed basic income. Thank you.
Thanks so much for You can hear me?
All right. Hi, I'm Nora McCarthy. I'm the Executive Director of the New York City Family Policy Project, which is a think tank focused on child welfare in New York. Thanks for the opportunity to testify, and thanks for the time that you've been putting in to get this difficult hearing right. I want to address some of the stories being told about child welfare in New York City right now in the media. We're seeing some in the media advanced solutions that are known not to work to improve safety for families and children. A major narrative right now is that these children's deaths have happened because ACS has gone too far in trying to reduce the threat of investigations and the trauma of removing children from home. That seems intuitive, that any effort to reduce threat and to reduce removing kids from home might be risky. And if you've read the news, you're basically only seeing risk. You're only seeing these horrific outlying cases. And it can be hard to remember that there's another 75,000 children coming to ACS's attention every year. But these narratives are not supported by the facts. What we know in New York is that we have a lot of really low-level, low-risk reports coming through the hotline. There was an assembly hearing in October because the New York State hotline is passing along 75% of all calls that it gets, when most states screen out half of calls. And the state commissioner testified that people answering the hotline don't use any standard screening questions. They're just asking the questions that come to mind. So a lot of unnecessary, unwarranted reports are flowing to ACS, and ACS has to respond to every one of them. CARES is not perfect, but it is an effort to respond to that reality. When a parent can't get a teenager to go to school, which has been a huge problem since COVID everywhere, you've probably seen the reports on school attendance. Only some families are dealing with investigations around that, and you don't need a full-on investigation on that type of issue. I've spoken to over a dozen CARES investigators in the last couple of months, and that's a lot of what they're seeing. It's important to remember also that CARES, as you said, is not some new untested approach. It's used in 20 states. It's been used here since 2013. And there's no indication that CARES has anything to do with children's deaths that we've seen reported on. So,
10 seconds.
Sure. I think we should all be surprised when we see really strong claims made in the media and absolutely no effort to interrogate them, and I appreciate that you've done that today. Same thing is true for foster care. Foster care has not dropped under the current administration. It's gone up since 2020. And we know from years and years of data that there's no indication that child fatalities go up when foster care entries go down. That's just not true. It's really important that we distinguish a demand for accountability from a rush to punishment. And when we see that children's deaths in the news and feel helpless.
Wrap it up. Thank you.
Can I just say the last bit? We have to remember, and we know from research, that child welfare interventions have the capacity to harm and not just help. So it's so important to slow down, to have real accountability, that it's inquisitive, that focuses on the facts, and gets to real solutions to do our best to protect every child. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Nila Natarajan, and I'm the Associate Director of Policy and Family Defense at Brooklyn Defender Services. Thank you to this committee and Chair Stevens for taking the time to look at ACS's so-called preventive services model and for the opportunity to testify. Brooklyn Defender Services Family Defense Practice is the primary provider of representation to parents charged with abuse or neglect in Brooklyn's Families Court. Every year we represent about 2,000 or 3,000 parents, and over the last 2 decades have represented 14,000 parents and worked with more than 30,000 children either to remain safely at home or leave the foster system. Our early defense practice specifically provides support, guidance, and legal counsel to families during the course of an ACS or CARES investigation. I cannot emphasize enough my colleagues' points here today that the notion that ACS as a policing agency is well situated to support families is fundamentally flawed. Instead, successful prevention of harm to children must be rooted in an investment in creating thriving and safe communities, which requires a real investment in families. We must look, quote unquote, upstream and ensure that every family's fundamental needs are met without any contact with the family policing system. Poverty is a driving force behind what is often reported as child maltreatment or neglect. But a lack of resources or access to affordable services should not subject anyone to a traumatic investigation and family separation. All of the thousands of families we serve live in poverty, which is often characterized as neglect by agents of the family policing system. Not only are families living in poverty disproportionately reported for child maltreatment, but reports are more likely to be substantiated. Any effort to eliminate harm to children and support families must include measures that address poverty head-on. New York State New York City should pursue universal basic income, universal child allowance, and expansions to public benefits to effectively reduce child poverty and any risk of maltreatment. Several recent studies have confirmed that increasing income and benefits to families leads to decrease in child maltreatment and abuse reports. One study found that a 5% increase, just 5%, in the number of families receiving SNAP led to a reduction between 8 and 14% of family policing system caseloads.
10 seconds.
Another study found that spending an additional $1,000 of benefit programs per person living in poverty reduced family policing reporting by 4%, substantiations by 4%, and placements in the foster system by 2%, and fatalities by 7%. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams, do you have questions? No. I do have a little bit of questions. One, Teresa, correct? Is that your name? Tanisha. One, I just want to say I hear you. I had a round table a couple of weeks ago with a group of foster care youth, and they also talked about sexual abuse and abuse that they've been receiving in the system. And so we're definitely looking to do a hearing on that, because I think it's one of the underbellies that we don't ever talk about that's happening in the system, that it's a real issue. I mean, not only in ACS, but in other places that we're seeing. So it's definitely something that we're gonna be talking about. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and also just apologize, because, you know, I say it all the time, anytime the system fails anyone, this is an account on all of us for what happened to you. And I guess, you know, I think even hearing like the disparities in some of the testimony that's here today around like how people think the solution is, whether it's, you know, having more support in cares or saying there just needs to be, you know, families that we just need to support families. I think both can exist, but I just want to also just echo that then gets very even confusing for an agency, right, where there is so much disparities. And so I think as advocates and as people who actually really care about kids, we all need to really get on one accord and one page, because it makes us then fight against each other. And it's interesting now because, like, again, I've only had this committee for less than a year, and that is what I found, where you have one group of folks saying, like, this is what we want, and another group saying, this is what we want. And for me, I just want kids to be safe. So I don't care about anything. Like, whatever makes kids safe is what we're going to do. So if that is making sure we're putting resources here, then let's do that, or whatever. And so I think even as advocates and folks who care about kids, because everyone in this room does, we got to figure out how to get on the same page. But I do want to ask about feedback about the legislation that we have today, and does anybody have any additional feedback about that?
I do. I would say that for the healthcare services, it needs to be longer than a year.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get any healthcare until I literally had a breakdown in my 30s. And if I would have been getting, and I also would like to say that it needs to be culturally relevant. When I first started getting therapy, it was always like a young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who was just coming to the clinic in my neighborhood to do her residency. So there is a lot of high turnover. When we talk about mental health care, it needs to be culturally relevant, and it doesn't need to be people that's just there to go somewhere else. It needs to be, you know, people that are going to stay for a while, because what happened is, you know, we have to tell our story over and over again.
And that's traumatic.
And it's very traumatic, and we know that we're not cared for. We know that this person is just here to get to the next place that they want to be. So I think that any child that goes into foster care needs mental health, because it's a constant identity crisis. Like, imagine being separated from your whole bloodline, and then growing up and having kids of your own, and like nothing to tie you. And regardless of what people say, Black people we're very family oriented. So when we don't have family and we're told that nobody wanted you and stuff like that, that imprints on our mental health, and it doesn't go away. Yeah. So I would say it's way longer than a year, that any child that is separated from their,
they should have
support. They should have access to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. Even the facts around like making sure that we have culturally relevant. I know Chair Lee was trying to get a pilot started, but we do need to figure out what does that recruitment look like from our communities and neighborhoods to ensure that we have people who look like the folks that are being mostly impacted. Does anyone else have anything they want to add?
Yes, thank you. I can speak to the other piece of legislation that.
Can I say a word?
Oh, yes.
Just about the mental health bill, I 100% agree. Like, we need access to services, but we don't need mandated services. Connecting them to ACS is troublesome, and I think we could really do well to look at restorative, circle-based practices, group-based practices for young people that are trauma-informed. There's a group called Hidden Water that does incredible work around child sexual
There's a number of
abuse.
groups, Bronx Solutions and all these folks.
Yeah, we can't just keep putting kids into a room and saying you have to be here for your health. You know, I worked with young people in foster care for a long time, and making sure that you have somebody that you can turn to and that you're not constantly refragmenting services, making special pilots that are not available, sticking things into shelters and then they end. I mean, the nature of our clinical mental health services is that they're not really therapy. And so if it's going to be looked at, it really needs to be looked at. Like, what do young people want? How do we deliver that? And how do we make it continuous during a time of transition and turmoil?
Yeah.
I just wanted to echo that. I mean, I think my experience in representing clients is that clients are very reticent to fully share their mental health realities with clinicians when they know that those results and that private information may come back to ACS and the prosecuting agency. And so I have the same concern as Nora about, mandating mental health services. I think support, there's a tension between support as a mandate. So, this idea that people should be able to access the resources they need without that being a mandate. And even if it's after ACS involvement, because it's being referred by ACS, I think there's a real concern and a fair concern that might, come back to ACS. And so I would be challenging the committee to be thinking about how we can resource community-based organizations, mental health organizations, but not as a mandate or as a connected to a system of punishment.
The one specific thing I'll add to that is a lot of the preventive agencies and a lot of the even mental health provision agencies are also foster agencies. They're in the same building. So it's ACS, but it's also I think a misnomer to think of those agencies as truly community-based when they're actually the contracted agency that keeps families separated.
I think that also gets difficult. A lot of the agencies do a slew of these things, right? So there are settlement houses that have ACS contracts, that have this contract, because they are literally just trying to do the work, right, to obtain their mission. So I think that also gets tricky to say, because then at that point, then we can't give it to anybody, because a lot of them have multiple contracts because they're going to do what they need to do to keep the lights on. So I hear that, but I think even with that, we have to think like, okay, well, should the city not fund these things, right? And so those are things we also have to think about as well. But I don't have any more questions because we do have a hard stop at 1, and I have another panel. Thank you, guys.
Really quickly, if I can just add, I definitely think that services should not be mandated. Families should have a right to decline, right? And I think the other thing that I'm hearing, even from ACS's testimony, is that there are a large number of people that get called in for neglect issues. And I think we need to really think about financially assisting families and thinking about investing in their wealth, right? Because poverty and racism is not going away anytime soon, but we have to consciously think about what we can do to help penetrate that, right? And to give families what they need. We spend a lot of money in foster care, helping foster families, and I think foster parents are great. But what if we reallocated that money to families, right, so that they can stay together, right? So, and I think that's missing from a lot of the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. I think that we have a lot of work to do around that, and even thinking about what's going to become forth with the federal government and how some of this money is going to dry up. So we're going to have to be creative. So I think, this is the start of a larger conversation that we'll need to continue to have. But thank you to this panel. I actually do need to wrap up because it's another hearing at 1, and I do want to get through all the panels and public testimony.
Okay.
But don't worry, I'll be in touch with all of y'all.
On the way out, I just want to say again, preventative services was a thing in 1976. So I even think we need to talk about preventative services and what exactly that is. Because if it didn't work 48 years ago, it's not going to work now.
Thank you. Next panel, Kim Mayo, Dr. Stephanie Charles, Sophia Charles, Maria Hernandez, Erica Brewerton, and Maria Moses, Myri Roses. And this is all they're going on together. Those are the only people that's here? Go ahead. Okay, if that's the only two. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay, you may begin.
Hi, my name is Mari Moss. I am a regional rep for the Community Action Board for Region 9, which is East Harlem and Harlem, which gives federal funding to nonprofit organizations such as ACS and the programs that provide their services. I also serve on the Mayor's Task Force for Ending Gender and Domestic-Based Violence. Thank you, Chair, for having this. 7 years ago, my life was irrevocably altered, and the trauma of that time continues to echo not only in my life, but also in the lives of my 3 daughters, whom I affectionately call my 3 little Harlem girls. They were just 2, 4, and 6 years old when I became a victim of domestic violence at the hands of my then husband. At the time, I was pursuing my master's degree in public administration at MCNY, working in city government and developing an economic theory to reduce poverty in Harlem. My trajectory was promising, but it came to a halt when the court system failed me. After enduring multiple instances of physical, verbal, and mental abuse, I called the police during a particularly violent episode where my husband threw me on the ground while I was already in a cast. Instead of protection, I was met with systematic failure. The court sided with my abuser, leaving me homeless, alienated from my children, and forced to endure unimaginable grief. My experience with ACS only deepened this pain. I was limited to seeing my daughters under their supervision, which exasperated the trauma. In one particularly egregious incident, an ACS worker, Beatrice Bennett, assaulted me in front of my children. I was documenting the abuse on my video. And my youngest daughter, just 2 at the time, clung to my leg and pleaded with the ACS workers, "I'm going to roar at you like a dinosaur and put you in jail." Even at that tender age, she recognized the injustice. As I reassured her that I loved her and promised to protect her, ACS staff forcibly pried her away. Despite her cries and desperate reach for me, that moment, my daughter's terror and helplessness remained etched in my memory. I'm just going to fast forward and then submit the rest to testimony. I am urgently calling for a joint committee investigation involving the Women's Committee, Judiciary, ACS Oversight, Public Safety, and Investigations to examine the systematic failures within ACS. We need to fact-check commissioners when they are coming before these testimony hearings. Some of them do not know what's really happening. CRM tracking services and involvement can help provide understanding this regard. Independent oversight to ensure proper vetting of staff, consultants, and implementation of safeguards to protect children and families, as well as trainings for sensitive matters of domestic violence and other forms of abuse within families. And then number 3, reparations and accountability for survivors of parental alienation and abuse at the hands of ACS and the court systems. Corrective actions are needed to make for these mistakes that are made by the agencies. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Sophine Charles. I am the Associate Executive Director for the Council of Family and Child Caring Agencies downstate. And first I want to commend the Council for the incredible work that you did on the Roadmap Mental Health report. Excellent, great resource for us. And also I want to commend you for all of the prevention support. It's the City Council that baseline preventive services. You also created a pathway to reduce workload for caseworkers in prevention, and you supported the workforce enhancements and the COLA. And so you've built an infrastructure of prevention services that are already prepared to deliver the mental health services that you speak of in your proposal. We applaud you for creating a pathway for additional access and availability. We do ask that you scan the prevention agencies that are currently available and see if you can strengthen the infrastructure many of our agencies already provide mental health services through the Article 31 clinics and also through the 29I services that are available to clients. And I think it would be very helpful to get a really good inventory of what currently exists to see how you can further strengthen that. The other thing I'll say is the prevention programs, they need support. For example, if the proposal to provide free mental health services to children coming out of foster care, you also have to increase the number of licensed clinical professionals who are available to provide those services. On the prevention side, our workforce is very limited, and we can't cover all of the cases that needs to be covered because of the workforce shortage. And those are just some examples. I could say more. It's in my report, and you'll be able to see how the lack of continuity also of city services also takes a hit for families in terms of what's available for them. And I'll pause there because I know you'll ask me questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Erica Brewington, and I'm impacted child and parent. And I'm a client advocate at Neighborhood Defender Service of Harlem. I know what it's like to have your kids taken by ACS, and I fight for other parents who are caught up in this system. I am here to tell my story and to share my perspective on Bill 0652 to provide mental health services to children who have been returned home after an ACS removal. My kids were taken in September of 2017 and didn't come home to April 2019. Mentally, my kids have not been right since they've been taken away. My daughter went into care when she was 5 years old. Before she was taken, she was outgoing, bubbly child. At that age, everything is brand new and she wanted to explore the world. Then she and my son were taken away from me and put in with a foster family. My son is autistic and has a speech impediment. The family they were placed with was Dominican, and my son had trouble understanding them. The adults would get frustrated that my son wasn't listening, and instead of understanding that he had special needs, he was traumatized by being taken away from me. Both of my children were bullied in the foster placement. They weren't taken care of at all, and it was terrible for their mental health. Finally, my kids came home, and I noticed they were different. They didn't want to go outside. My daughter would cry every time I left the house. She even cried today. She hardly speaks anymore. They came home in 2019, and in October of 2019, there was a final discharge. In March of 2020, we were shut in because of the pandemic, and they didn't have time to adjust. For months, they were on pins and needles because they were under ACS supervision, and they didn't know what they might say may harm us. My son's autism makes it hard to find a good therapist. He doesn't take to most therapists, and even if he does, they are not necessarily equipped to meet his needs. For now, I'm his therapist. I'm my own therapist as well. The therapist I had called ACS on me, so how can I trust any therapist? I'm not done.
Okay.
My kids are unpacking a lot of stuff from this. My partner and I are as well, because we weren't prepared for the mental anguish of our children when they return home to us. I miss seeing the light in my children's eyes. We all need good therapy, but here's what I'm adamant about. ACS did not get to use this as another way to spy on my family. They are not entitled to get a report from my children's therapist about the damage they did. ACS may say they're getting the report to correct their mistakes, but no. History has shown they use these findings against families. ACS can pay for services that families need, but they do not get to get a report. I don't know if this bill would impact me, but would it be retroactive? Would it also provide therapy for parents when their kids are returned? But I do know that the harm ACS has done to my family, to my kids and their mental health, to me and my partner. What we don't need is more ACS and more mandated reporters. They're the ones who caused this problem. I want to thank the city council members for listening to my testimony and hope they will think seriously about what impact the parents are actually asking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Maria Hernandez. I'm a social work student and I am also an impacted parent. My daughter was removed from my care at 4 months, a critical stage for us to bond and form a secure attachment. The American Academy of Pediatrics states that family separation can have irreparable harms, having lasting emotional consequences and affect their long and short-term health. People believe the idea that because the child is still an infant, they will have no recollection of events. Even though the brain doesn't remember, the body holds memory. Her body language, facial expressions, and cry would tell another story. Every time my partner and I left a visit, confusion will fill her face. She would cry and become inconsolable. Almost every single day, I would receive FaceTime calls from the foster parent because she acknowledged that the people my daughter wanted was her parents. The time that my daughter spent away from us was 10 months, but felt like an eternity. Throughout the time, she was able to form a bond with her aunt and her cousins who call her their sister. But once she was reunited with us, it also added an additional impact because of the bonds that she formed with them. She went from crying because she wanted to see me to crying because she wanted to see them. I am somebody who enjoys capturing every single moment on camera. Like any other mother, my camera roll is full of thousands of pictures of her. As I look back at those first 4 months that she was in my care, I see a very happy child. I caught her first smile ever on my phone. I look at all the times she laid on my chest and would fall asleep. I look at the times that she was with her father cuddled up on his chair. When I look at the pictures that I took of her when she was out of my care, that is not the same baby I knew. She would be expressionless, look to the side in a daze, and have a frown on her face. Now my partner and I dedicate every single minute of the day making up for lost time. She smiles in every picture we take. She enjoys playing, eating meals together as a family, and more, but there is still ripple effects that we deal with because of her removal. She cries in the night and says, "Mommy, Daddy," in her sleep. When her father is at work, she says, "Mommy, where's Daddy?" and vice versa. She clings to me, follows me around everywhere, and in order for her to fall asleep, she needs my arm over her. Even in a deep sleep, if she feels my arm move, she wakes up and puts it over her again. Sometimes, for her to fall asleep, she puts her face right next to mine. She craves a closeness, and as her mother, I can't help but pinpoint it to the time we spend away. Not only do children need therapy, but so do the parents of these children. We are expected to go from a minimum of 1 hour of visitation to being full-time parents once again after months of separation. From the beginning, we are looked down upon, treated inhumanely, and assumptions of us are already made. We deal with the long and short-term impacts that family separation has on our children, not the preventive service workers, ACS, or anybody else. I'm gonna wrap it up.
Thank you.
It is essential for parents to also be given a space to talk about their case and how it made them feel without the fear of this information being reported to caseworkers. It is essential for not just children, but parents to have free, quality, non-invasive mental health services available when they are ready to process the family separation they went through, because the grief that we experience is not linear and does not stop.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Stevens and members of the Children and Youth Committee. Thank you for calling this meeting and inviting JCA to testify on behalf of children and families we serve. My name is Kim Mayo, and I am the Assistant Vice President of Community Services at JCCA. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I have 35 years in child welfare, delivering and overseeing preventive programs and evidence-based models. Like many nonprofit providers, JCCA faces challenges in retaining a fully staffed workforce. This is primarily due to low salaries. The starting salary for therapists in the child parent psychotherapy and FTR programs that require a master's degree, begin at $56,500. Due to low salaries, we often lose staff to hospital and government agencies that pay higher wages. In addition to the challenges facing the nonprofit community, our families are also facing systemic challenges. There is very little housing available that is affordable for low-income families. Many of our families are chronically homeless, causing children to move around the shelter system, which often causes chronic absenteeism in school. Many parents are unemployed and have limited access to job training or vocational supports. They often receive public benefits and struggle to afford basic necessities such as housing and groceries due to inflation. While we aim to address our families' challenges, unfortunately, we are unable to provide all the supports and services they need due to limited funding in our ACS contracts. Our children require academic and recreational supports that will help them improve school performance, as well as behavioral functioning to strengthen relations within their family. I ask that the committee increase funding in ACS preventive contracts. With more fundings, preventive provider slots, we'll be able to provide additional resources to our families. I also encourage the city to take more action to address systemic racism and challenges that face preventive families and preventive programs. Preventing.
You wrap it up, please.
Oh, yes, I will. So, in conclusion, thank you for taking the time to consider the needs of the families enrolled in preventive services. Together, providers like JCCA, we can continue to achieve our goal to reduce the number of families in the child welfare system and help them thrive.
Thank you. I just have a quick question to the parents, the impacted parents that are on the panel, and especially because this hearing is about preventative services, and just trying to see, were any of you offered any of the CARES programs or services that they kind of talked about today before the removal of your children?
Yes, but if I denied it, I can't speak for this young lady and that young lady, but me, it was either CARES or investigation. There was no in between. And I wasn't told it was a 7-day investigation. I was told it was a 30-day investigation. So it was, 30 days with CARE. It's the same as an investigation, so I chose the investigation.
Yeah, because that's what I've been hearing, like that discrepancy as well around whether it being optional, voluntary, and those things. So.
Everything he said is what he envisioned, but it's not what his subordinates. That's not what his subordinates does. I think he needs to do a week as an investigator to see what they do and how they talk to us when they come into our home. No respect, none. I'm already guilty, but in criminal court, I'm innocent. But in family, I'm guilty, and I have to prove I'm innocent. I don't understand.
For me, in the beginning of my case, I was just given a folded up piece of paper and told to call Family Representation Service. That was all I told. I was told after my case, I was in preventive services. I was just given a $1,000 discharge grant, which nobody actually informed me about. I only knew about it because I Googled it and then I brought it up. And you have to meet a certain timeline in order to receive that grant as well. And at that time, I did not meet that timeline. I did eventually end up getting the grant, but that doesn't even cover rent. That's one. Two, I also asked for a child care voucher because I was going back to school. My partner was starting a new job, and the only person we felt comfortable taking care of her was her aunt, and I can't even use that child care voucher for her aunt. It has to be licensed
yeah. So
service.
That means you didn't get the other voucher that they were talking about, which they said they had limited vouchers for,
right.
Which is one of the major issues that
I can't use it. I can't use it to pay somebody to take care of my child, somebody that I feel comfortable with.
And in my situation, I was completely blindsided by the whole situation coming from a domestic violence situation. I was not offered domestic violence services whatsoever. I did not hear about them until way after my case had begun, and the agent that was on my case acted as an instigator between my husband and myself, making the domestic violence situation even worse than it was before.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that this was your experience, and really want to continue to work with you guys to get a better understanding of like what went wrong, because the reality is I've said that even when they were testifying, that I do think that there's a disconnect from what the policy is and then how it's being implemented, and those things are a concern for me because, we have to make sure the quality of care is happening, and I think it is, the intentions are there, but are they actually being implemented correctly? So thank you to this panel. I'll call the next panel. Thank you so much. Sharon Brown, Michelle Wakefield, and what is this? Etofia Lane. supposed to say? I have one person on Zoom. Anyone can start.
Thank you. I am Michelle D. Winfield. I am a elected district leader in the 74th Assembly District. I give you that reference because the young lady I will be talking about is a member of the political club. There's a young lady that has gone through the foster care system. But the first thing I'd like to do is speak to the Honorable Stevens and her committee to say thank you. I support the bill, and I thank you. I also thank ACS. I know there's been a lot of talk, but I thank them for the work that many do that are positive. But I have suggestions because of the experience I have with the young lady, and she has, through her time, she's 26 years old. She went into the system when she was 11 years old, and she kept journals every single day. And then she produced a book, 5 Feet of Water, by Mary Malloy Anderson. And everybody should have a copy of that book. If you want testimony, it's all here. Exactly how she was treated, what problems existed, and it's really mind-opening. So these things included, she had ups and downs, but she was approached in the foster care system by the boyfriends of the foster care system people, man entering her room at night, social workers bullying her to silence. And even though the many ups and downs, the social worker did not improve her living conditions, which included girls bringing men into the apartment. There are suggestions that we make and to take seriously the allegations of groping, molestation, and drug use in the home.
10
Death
seconds,
threats
please.
are not just an incident. Paid tutoring should be paid. I heard them say they pay for tutoring. They do not pay for her tutoring. It's not $90 an hour. Encourage children for their education, obtain work. Theft or bullying should not be tolerated by the ACS staff. It's included in here.
Well, thank you. Could you wrap up your testimony? We do have other
The
people on the panel.
last statement.
Thank you.
The title of her book, 5 Feet of Water, because she's 6 feet tall. She says it's 5 feet of water because she wasn't underwater. She was only molested once and was in 12 different homes. Many of her friends molested every week and in 24 homes. And thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and everyone here for this time. I am Ethiopia Lane, the daughter and granddaughter of United States Army veterans. I am a Brooklyn resident, small business owner, HBCU alumni, divorced mother of one, and I am now an impacted lived experience expert and family advocate. For me, 652 is great, but it's a little too late. ACS and foster agencies are currently denying families medically necessary out-of-network mental health preventive services for after discharge and aftercare. May of 2021 was the beginning of understanding and experiencing how the lack of oversight in creating a quality-controlled channel for preventive service communications with investigating CPS workers and ACS emergency services can create the most damaging, traumatizing effects within a family. In April 2021, a custody modification of my divorce decree and an ACS withdrawal prompted my family's first experience with a preventive service procured by ACS that provided a sociotherapist skilled working with African American Christian families of divorce and children with mental health diagnosis. She was a Black woman. She was degreed and skilled in working with my daughter's specific diagnosis, a diagnosis that required modification through behavior modification through intensive dialectical and cognitive therapeutic services. Through Good Shepherd services, I finally found relief and the support that I needed where there were fractures in co-parenting. Although the service was provided to my ex-husband because our child was living with him, I was included, from planning to participating in family meetings and check-ins. My joint legal custody was respected. My then 11-year-old daughter was supported as she stayed with her father, even after custody modification was reversed due to my ex-husband's violation of custody agreement that triggered a CPS investigation. Supportive services continue. However, if you fast forward to now, it is 2024. My daughter was remanded in 2021. She was remanded for to receive services, but we had preventive services. How could this happen? Well, it happened. ACS emergency services were called when my daughter was placed into, when I took my daughter to an emergency, to the emergency room after she had an emotional breakdown. I was doing what I was supposed to do. My daughter was remanded for mental health services after mental health, and for the state to provide those mental health services, and that I was able to support them in providing the mental health provider. The services were always out of network.
Thank you.
My daughter never received services. Now it's 2024, and wrapping up, it is 2024, and despite the Office of Children's policy allowing medically necessary out-of-network preventive services after discharge to be reimbursable, ACS and Seaman Society for Children and Families have denied preventive services that are out of network. My daughter has no mental health services at this time. She just received mental health services in March of 2024. So there are no services now, leaving my daughter with no mental health services as of November 2024. She's missed 20 days of school. She's been a B student, and now her grades have dropped so much that they put her in promotion to her jeopardy of her senior year. To her senior year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll follow up after. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Brown from the Rose of Sharon Enterprises Company. Remember Israel, we need the hostages released.
Please stay on topic.
Yes,
please
and
stay on topic.
let Yahweh's people go. That is on topic. We had someone who was from New York City that died, so we need to
Please stay on topic for preventative services, please.
Okay, so we're dealing with the youth, the foster care system, all of these systems that do not work in America and around the world are led by Roman Catholicism and Islam. We're kicking them out. We're going to have Judeo-Christianity
Stay on topic
run that.
to preventative services and ACS.
And
Please
we're
stay
going to
on
take over
topic.
ACS with Judeo-Christianity.
Again, I need you to stay on topic. We are discussing preventative services and supports for ACS. We are not talking about that topic, so please stay on topic, or we have to end your testimony. Thank you.
Okay, preventative services are going to have to change what they do because they have not worked all these years. They debilitate people intentionally, and we're going to be changing the things that they do. We see they do not work. We get the testimony that sexual abuse is happening there. This is not a surprise. This is what they believe in. They believe that this is what we should be doing. They want to have children marrying young people. So when they do something to a little girl, I say, this is what they believe. We need to change who's running these agencies because you're fighting up against a belief system. They believe this is supposed to happen. So if you have the majority of people in the foster care who are being sexually abused and you still pretend that you're shocked, Islam believes in marrying 9-year-olds.
Okay,
they
again,
run
we need
this
to make
system.
sure we're staying on topic.
Roman Catholicism runs the health system.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. No questions for this panel. Thank you. That concludes the in-person portion of our public testimony. We will now move to remote testimony. If you are testifying remotely, please listen for your name to be called. Once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you. You may then start your testimony once the Sergeant of Arms starts the clock and you are cued to begin. Angela Boyton.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me. I am Angela Burton. I'm the co-chair of the Narrowing the Front Door to New York City's Child Welfare System, and I work alongside many of the advocates who have testified today, as well as on the state level. I wanted to start. My testimony is related to proposed Bill 9. The Narrowing the Front Door group is very invested in family Miranda rights. We know that there are 2 bills that will be reintroduced, the verbal and the written family Miranda warnings, which are much more expansive and starts at the front door. The bill that is proposed today is a bit confusing because although it says that it is designed to provide information about where to get legal services at the beginning of an investigation, it also, in the actual language, indicates that this information would be provided to people after or following an indicated report, which is after an investigation has already happened. So it's very problematic in terms of the confusion around when this information would be provided, as well as the fact that it only provides information about where to receive services. Unlike the family Miranda bills, which will be reintroduced later on this session, which provides a whole panoply of information about rights to the people being investigated. I'd like to just read an excerpt from the ACS lawsuit that is currently pending against the Administration for Children's Services. I'm sorry. Should I continue?
Yes, continue.
Okay, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry I didn't put my video on.
Your time has expired.
10 seconds. You can wrap it up. Go ahead. You were still continuing. Go ahead.
Yes. So the Narrowing the Front Door group is very, thank you, supportive of providing people with their rights. But the bill that is proposed today, Bill 9, does not address all of the due process concerns that have been well documented because it, number one, it's far too late in the process. And number two, it only provides information about where to obtain services, which is already being provided in any event. So we would urge the committee to actually support the Ong and Rivera bills that will be reintroduced this session. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And just so we're all clear, I do support those bills in addition to this bill. I don't think it has to be one or the other. But I do hear your concerns, and I will work with the bill sponsor to make sure those are addressed in that bill and supporting the other 2 bills that will be introduced. So thank you so much. I see no one else here wishes to testify, and so with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.